Chapter 1825. Time flew by and it was already the next morning. Perhaps it was because Zhang Liang had informed everyone in advance, but no one cared about the 3 extra students from the Confucian school. Not many people cared about Xiaoyu and Tianming. Dustless, on the other hand, had caused quite a stir. As for the specific reason, he himself did not know. However, it was not until the morning class that Dustless realized why he had attracted so much attention. You look like you're full of wisdom, but you can't even recognize a single word. You can't even write a single word. Faced with such a question, Dustless wanted to cry but had no tears. He was even worse than Tianming. At least this guy could recognize a few words, but Dustless could not even read Xiaozhuan, let alone write it. The thoughts of the ancients are really troublesome, especially the Qin's Xiaozhuan. Because Dustless was too strange, Fun Yin, who came to teach the class, was very angry. This guy was so angry that he made Dustless stand outside as punishment. Tianming, who was supposed to be punished, was now Dustless's turn. He was also called the King of the Bottom. If it was in the past, Dustless would have turned a deaf ear to such a ridiculous punishment. However, now that he still needed to stay in the Confucian school, it would be a tragedy if he was expelled. Dustless had no choice but to use his clone to deal with Fun Yin while he went out to have fun. The scenery in Shanghai is not bad. Let's go out for a walk. Just as Dustless was about to sneak out from the back door, an unexpected figure suddenly appeared from the back door. She obviously knew Dustless and just nodded slightly before leaving. Isn't this Sherlan? Staring at the girl who brushed past him, Dustless was somewhat surprised. He followed her line of sight and saw Sherlan carrying an exquisite wooden bucket, similar to a lunchbox in the future. A strong fragrance came from it. She was probably here to deliver food to the Confucian students. Due to the Confucian school's belief that a gentleman should stay away from the kitchen, it had always been the kitchen's and that was responsible for providing food to the little sage manor, and Sherlan was the kitchen's errand boy. Sherlango. No, you brat, stop right there. Dustless shouted loudly. Then he realized that he had said something wrong and quickly changed his words. He turned into a breeze and chased after her. Now Sherlan was disguised as a man. She was a handsome young man through and through. Sherlan just quietly looked at Dustless, who was blocking in front of her. Her face was calm and her breathing was even. She looked very calm, but there were no ripples in the depths of her eyes. There's something wrong with you, kid? Staring at Sherlan, Dustless said meaningfully, you didn't even greet me when you saw me. Are you treating me like air? Salute? You're not an official or a noble, so what's the point of bowing? It was rare for Sherlan to open her mouth, so she asked calmly, I feel that you are very strange, blocking other people's path for no reason. If there is nothing else, please move aside. Hee. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled faintly and said, how can it be an unintentional mistake? Don't you feel that you are too calm in front of your customers? Confucian scholars are your boss's frequent customers. At the very least, you should be more respectful to me. What are you trying to say? With a rare frown, Sherlan asked puzzledly. She keenly sensed that Dustless's words had a hidden meaning. Don't you think it's strange that a waiter who does odd jobs is too calm in front of his employer, and an employer who is deliberately looking for trouble? If you were shopkeeper Ding now, you might have bowed and apologized. But your unshakable attitude will easily arouse other people's suspicion, Dustless said with a smile. His eyes were full of ridicule and ridicule. Boring topic. Hearing this, Sherlan's face changed slightly. She took a detour and left. She suddenly felt that it made sense. Facing a person whose status and identity was infinitely higher than her expression didn't change at all. She didn't even care. Wasn't this full of flaws? Sometimes, a flawless plan was full of flaws. This guy. Sherlan turned her head and glanced at the smiling Dustless. She suddenly labeled him as a dangerous person. Even though Dustless looked harmless just now, Sherlan felt inexplicably nervous when talking to him. She had never felt this way before. His clear eyes, which seemed bored and lazy, were terrifying, as if they could see through people's hearts. Don't be in a hurry to leave. I still have something to tell you. Dustless pulled Sherlan's little hand like a ghost. He leaned close to her ear and blew a breath of hot air. He said, I have a friend who has some connections in the Mirage. He invited me to go up as a guest. Do you want to go? The Mirage? You mean the Mirage? Hearing this, Sherlan's heart trembled violently. A trace of disgust and hatred flashed in the depths of her bright eyes. She immediately noticed that Dustless had pulled her hand and touched it twice without leaving a trace. Sherlan immediately broke free. Don't try to scare me. The Mirage is a place that only those big shots can go up. You are just a powerless Confucian disciple. What kind of backing do you have? Liar. Do you think that you are the head of the Confucian school? It is understandable that he was invited to the Mirage. Shirlan coldly refused, but her quick-witted eyes were rolling around, extremely bright. This cunning little girl. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but smile. He smiled but didn't say anything. After carefully analyzing the meaning behind her words, one would realize that although Shirlan rejected him on the surface, she was actually secretly questioning who Dustless knew. Still trying to trick me? This little girl is a liar. She thinks too highly of herself. Dustless rolled his eyes. He naturally understood the meaning behind Shirlan's words. Chapter 1826. Tisk Tsk. I won't tell you this. All in all, you only need to know that I can enter the Mirage at will. I have a powerful backer. Wu Qin shrugged his shoulders, beaming with joy and complacency. After that, he took out an invitation card that was similar to an invitation letter. This is, sure enough, after seeing the special invitation card, Shirlan's pupils suddenly shrank. She clearly found that the last person who wrote the invitation card was Yun Zhongjuan. Do you know Yun Zhongjuan? Shirlan asked suspiciously. She stared at Dustless from head to toe. Except for his handsome face and unique temperament, there seemed to be nothing special about him. How could he know a big shot like Yun Zhongjuan? He was the owner of the Mirage. Of course I don't know him. Dustless shook his head and said with a smile, however, I know a friend. His family is in the business of medicinal herbs and is often responsible for delivering goods to the Xinglu building. He picked up the invitation card in his hand and said, only with this can you enter the Xinglu building at will. Is that so? Hearing this, Shirlan did not doubt him. She just nodded in confusion and believed his words. It was a fact that a large number of medicinal herbs were often sent to the Mirage. The fish has taken the bait. Looking at Shirlan, who was deep in thought, Dustless laughed secretly. Of course he had made up this nonsense. Where did this invitation card come from? As the saying went, it was easier to become an official if one had connections in the court. With Yueshin, an invisible subordinate, it was easy for Dustless to get this kind of invitation card. Can you really enter the Mirage? Shirlan looked at Dustless with a longing look. Although she concealed the longing in her words cleverly, Dustless heard it clearly. This was normal. Shirlan's brother was caught in the Mirage. She had always wanted to sneak into the coffin in the sea, but there was no suitable opportunity. Moreover, there were many experts in the Mirage. If she sneaked in rashly, she would definitely get burned. Yes, I can, but, after glancing at Shirlan, Dustless lowered his voice and said, but why should I take you in? What if you have evil intentions and do something terrible? Won't I be implicated? I promise to be obedient. Hearing this, Shirlan hurriedly put on the look of an obedient child, afraid that Dustless would refuse. She raised her arms high and was about to make a vow to impress Dustless. I have no proof. How am I supposed to determine if you're telling the truth? Furthermore, your attitude toward me earlier was simply too vile. It's better that I find someone else to go to the Mirage with me. Dustless purposely turned around and left. Wait. Seeing Dustless leave, Shirlan hesitated for a moment before she hurriedly chased after him and asked, what conditions do you have? As long as I can fulfill them, I will definitely not refuse. This guy. Why does he have to jump into the fire pit himself? Hearing this, Dustless's mind was moved. The corner of his mouth raised slightly, and he couldn't help but laugh shamelessly. On the surface he looked very wretched. Shirlan, if I'm not wrong, you should be a girl, right? Immediately after, there was another wave of strange laughter. Shirlan's face instantly turned extremely pale. She already vaguely understood the dirty conditions Dustless proposed. This guy is really shameless. Shirlan's pretty face flashed with anger. Since Dustless knew that she was a girl, he still proposed conditions and even shamelessly threatened her. In particular, his wretched laughter made Shirlan feel even more uncomfortable. Shirlan's calm eyes gradually became colder. Your invitation letter. I will accept it. It would be impolite for me to decline. Shirlan, who originally looked weak, suddenly became extremely vigorous. Her toes lightly touched the ground, and her body rapidly flew over like a migrating bird. Her soft jade-like hand had already grabbed Dustless's invitation letter. You want to use force? Dustless narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous light shot out from the slits of his eyes. Too slow. A strange light swept across his body, and Dustless instantly retreated dozens of meters away, as if he had teleported. How did you do that? Realizing that she had grabbed nothing, Sherlan's beautiful eyes widened several times. She didn't even notice Dustless retreating, and she didn't even see how he moved. Ever since Mo family's mechanical city, my bounty has been increased to 1 million gold by that guy Ing Zheng. If I was casually caught by a little girl like you, I would have died a long time ago. Dustless mercilessly attacked Sherlan, and said indifferently, with your strength, you still need to cultivate for thousands of years to catch up with my shadow. Arrogant. Sherlan didn't appreciate his words and once again rushed towards Dustless. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. However, the scene was the same as before. After the sharp sound of breaking through the air, Dustless evaporated on the spot again. Sherlan helplessly realized that she couldn't catch up with Dustless's speed. She couldn't even see the speed of others, let alone catch up with Dustless. Do I have to agree to this guy's shameless condition? Sherlan thought indignantly. When she thought of Dustless's disgusting condition, her eyes turned red and she looked quite aggrieved. Her brother was caught by Yun Zhongjuan, and now she encountered a shameless person. Sherlan's heart was about to collapse. Ahem, Miss Sherlan, I haven't said my condition yet, right? Please don't act like you are about to be violated. I feel very wronged. Dustless was depressed when he saw this. It seemed that he hadn't said his condition yet. It seemed that Sherlan had misunderstood. Chapter 1827. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing Sherlan's aggrieved and sad look, Dustless suddenly felt a little apologetic. Her brother had been captured by Yun Zhongjuan, and she had come to the unfamiliar Shanghai alone. He felt somewhat embarrassed if he continued to tease her. That old fellow Funyan spoke a lot of nonsense just now, and I was scolded by him for an entire class. Dustless casually found a place to lean on, exposing his back to Sherlan. He hummed and said, "Help me massage my back. You have to be good at it. Otherwise, I will refuse to take you to the Mirage." Your condition is that simple? Sherlan's eyes were more or less filled with astonishment as she stared at Wu Chen. In her opinion, Wu Chen should be the one to raise the price and take advantage of the situation. What do you think? Wu Chen asked rhetorically. He stared at her graceful body and sized it up. Suddenly, he smiled ambiguously and said, "Do you want us to do something more fun than back massaging?" When he mentioned fun, Dustless deliberately emphasized the word fun. "No, I'll help you massage your back." Hearing this, Sherlan shook her head like a rattledrum. She took the initiative to approach Dustless, raised her fist and gently knocked on his back. Faint ripples spread out in her calm eyes. This guy is so strange. Sherlan stared at Dustless's side profile. She felt that it was somewhat familiar, but she couldn't remember it. Have we met somewhere before? I feel that you seem somewhat familiar. After a while, Sherlan couldn't help but ask curiously. Of course we have met before, Dustless said in an extremely certain tone. Have you really seen him before? Sherlan was at a loss. She went through all the dusty memories in her mind, but she didn't have any impression of Dustless. Smart all your life but stupid this time. This sentence is not false at all. Dustless remained silent. Sherlan went to the wanted poster every day to look at the name list. She must have felt that Dustless was familiar. After all, he had a bounty of 1 million gold taels. It was normal for Sherlan to have an impression of him. Speaking of which, you look a little similar to that Dustless on the wanted poster. Sherlan's eyes suddenly changed. She looked at Dustless with suspicion. Dustless's mouth twitched a few times as he asked in a low voice, "Are you sure it's just a likeness? That's obviously me, okay?" Dustless felt like he was going crazy. He had changed his appearance and become a scholarly disciple, and his name had also changed to Zichin. But Sherlan had said that he only looked like one. In short, Dustless had been dealt a heavy blow. You're definitely not him. Shaking her head, Sherlan carefully shook her head again. The contrast is too great. The contrast is too great? Dustless put on a fake smile as he touched his nose and asked, "What do you think is too great?" In fact, I feel that I'm too similar to the Dustless on the wanted poster. We're practically the same. It's not the same. Please don't insult the person I respect the most. If you don't, even if I'm not your match, I'll take you down with me. Sherlan shook her head stubbornly and said in admiration, "He single-handedly dealt a heavy blow to the Qin army that besieged the house of Mo, and even single-handedly dealt a heavy blow to Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha. He's the talk of the world. How can he be as sloppy as you?" Dustless was speechless. He could only stare and then sigh. Everyone has a different side. You don't know who that Dustless is. Perhaps even if that dustless is right in front of you, you'll still treat him like a stranger and even look down on him. At least he's stronger than you. Shirlan snorted softly and said with certainty. In her opinion, this Ziqin in front of her belonged to the frivolous type. To put it bluntly, he was just like a playboy. Dustless on the wanted poster, on the other hand, had single-handedly repelled the Qin army and Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha. How could such an unparalleled expert be a sloppy person like this Ziqin? This guy actually admires me so much. Looking at Shirlan's fascinated eyes, Dustless more or less felt that the affairs of the world were unpredictable. Unknowingly, he had gained a heavenly beauty as a fan. Speaking of which, when will you bring me into the mirage? Thinking of her brother who was still in the mirage, Shirlan asked expectantly and anxiously. Let's wait for a few months. After thinking for a while, Dustless gave an answer that made Shirlan want to vomit blood. A few months? Are you trying to act shamelessly? Shirlan's eyes widened slightly. She gave Dustless a punch in annoyance and asked angrily, Are the disciples of the Confucian school so untrustworthy? Although I promised to bring you into the mirage, but I didn't specify the exact time. Dustless shrugged as if it had nothing to do with him. Hearing this, Shirlan's pretty face was covered with frost. She did not expect Dustless to play word games. Now, everything upstairs is still being prepared and you might not achieve your goal. Dustless explained calmly, I just don't want to waste my effort. You saw what happened a few days ago, right? The Yin-Yang school has just arrived in Shanghai, and all the preparations have not been completed. This seems to be true. Shirlan nodded noncommittally. Yun Zhongjuan and the others had just arrived in Shanghai, and the follow-up preparations had not been completed. If they sneaked in rashly now, they would only end up empty-handed. Her brother might not be on the mirage yet, so there was no harm in waiting for the time being. All right, you can go and deliver the food to them. Dustless waved his hand, indicating that Shirlan could leave. Before she left, he said something that confused Shirlan. She did not understand what Dustless was saying and what he was trying to express. Such a lousy fan is too unprofessional. How dare she say that the original is a fake? She will definitely not be able to get an autograph in the future. Chapter 1828. Dustless complained as he walked, expressing his dissatisfaction with Shirlan's lousy fan. He felt extremely unlucky to be mistaken as the real deal. Of course, this couldn't be blamed on Shirlan. When he entered the Mo clan, for the sake of some unnecessary trouble, Zhang Liang specially helped Wuchen to use a disguise technique to change some features of his appearance. It was normal that Shirlan couldn't recognize Dustless. Forget it. True gold fears no fire. You'll know who the real deal is in the future. Dustless walked out of the back door of the Confucian school and glanced at Shirlan before walking away. As for today's lesson, he left it to his clone. Dustless was bored by the Confucian school's gentleman's path. He was used to being a villain, and the noble script of a gentleman didn't suit him. Let's go to the Mo family's new base for now. Dustless strolled aimlessly on the streets. He wanted to go to Pao Ding Inn, but he suddenly remembered that the Mo family had retreated to the wilderness. Dustless changed his direction and walked towards the deep mountains and forests outside the city. This is the person who made Wei Zhuang fail? In a mansion, a pale-faced child looked at the wanted poster on the table. He frowned when he saw the unprecedented bounty on it. He was surprised that this person could make Wei Zhuang retreat. Yes, Master Xinghan. The beautiful woman beside the young man nodded. She was emitting a murderous aura and a bone-piercing chill. The person on the wanted poster was Dustless. These two people were Great Si Ming and Xinghan from the Yin-Yang school. You hate him a lot? Xinghan turned his head and looked at Great Si Ming in surprise. He could feel the cold murderous aura very clearly. I have some grudges against him. Great Si Ming nodded with a bitter expression, but he didn't mention the reason. Damn you, you better not let me catch you. Otherwise I will make you regret being alive. Great Si Ming did not show any emotions on his face, but his heart was burning with rage. Great Si Ming had her reasons for not mentioning the grudge between her and Dustless. She couldn't possibly tell Xinghan that damn Dustless had peed in front of her, young Si Ming and the moon goddess. How could Great Si Ming say such words that could kill? His Excellency Dong Huang said that the traitors of the Mo family have all come to Shanghai. Xinghan did not probe further. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked into the distant void. He said with certainty, His Excellency Dong Huang is unfathomable. His astrology has never been wrong. I have a feeling that we will meet that fellow sooner or later. This is inevitable. As long as Dustless is in Shanghai, meeting him is only a matter of time. Great Si Ming agreed wholeheartedly. She had been patrolling every night to look for Dustless. She hoped that the heavens would give her face and kill Dustless if she met him. Ever since the previous incident, Great Si Ming had a shadow in her sleep. Sometimes she would dream of this enemy of hers peeing in front of the moon goddess, young Si Ming, and herself. At night, the dark sky was filled with bright stars. The night breeze was nice. On the deserted street, only a thin figure was walking leisurely. This outfit is still the most comfortable. When he returned from the Mo family stronghold, it was already midnight. Dustless stretched his body and felt that the outfit given to him by Duanmu Rong was much more comfortable. The Confucians paid attention to the rules of their sect and their attire was more formal. It was not suitable for a lazy person like Dustless. It's already so late? You're still out? Aren't you afraid of danger? A malicious voice was heard. Dustless was slightly stunned. He looked over and saw a burly man walking out of the alley. So it's you? Dustless was slightly stunned. When he saw the burly man, a look of surprise flashed across his face. This man was carrying a huge sword on his back. The body of the sword was very rough and did not have a sharp edge. However, it was shockingly heavy. This burly man looked ferocious. The left side of his chest was half naked and his cheeks were covered in tattoos. His appearance was also very scary. You are Xing Qi of the farmer's sect? When he saw this man, Dustless was puzzled and asked, I don't think I have any grudges with you. Are you here to take revenge on me? I'm here to look for Gunya. Xing Qi did not hide his intentions and said in a low voice, I heard from Luo Jie that you seem to have an inexplicable relationship with Gunya. When you were at the Mo family you were even allies in the trenches. I see. I understand why you're here. Dustless smiled at Xing Qi and said, You want to ask me where Gunya is hiding, right? I do know where he is, but the price is a little high. No matter how I look at it, you look like a pauper. You can't afford this price. This guy is really good at insulting people, Xing Qi thought to himself. After thinking about it for a long time, he finally understood what Dustless meant. He was actually mocking him for being weak. I can't deny that I'm no match for you. Xing Qi did not waste his breath. He had heard of Dustless's achievements. He had single-handedly defeated all the members of Quicksand, including Wei Zhuang. He knew that he could not do that. So, you can state a condition. After I help you in exchange, you have to tell me where Gunya is hiding. Xing Qi stated his condition. Xing Qi had been imprisoned because of Gunya. Hence they were like fire and water. When enemies met, they would be filled with hatred. An exchange? Dustless frowned slightly. He did not expect Xing Qi, who was as stubborn as steel, to be so cowardly. Moreover, this condition seemed to be quite good. He really did have something that he needed help with. After you help me kill someone, I'll tell you where Gunya is. Chapter 1829. You're willing to accept my conditions? That's great. Xing Qi revealed a rare smile. If Wu Qin did not agree to his request, Xing Qi would also be helpless. If they met in battle, he would definitely lose. Since he could not defeat Wu Qin in a fight, if he rashly challenged Wu Qin, the result would be no different from setting himself on fire. After all, Wei Zhuang's Quicksand and a large number of Qin troops, in addition to Gongshu Chou family's mechanical beasts, were all crushed by Wu Qin. With such a shocking strength, if one claimed to be the second in the world, absolutely no one would dare to claim to be the first in the world. My conditions are very simple. Help me kill Chu Nangong and take the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from him. Dustless pondered for a while and gave his answer. I can't do that. Dustless thought that Xing Qi would agree on the spot. Who knew that this guy would stare at him with a fiery face? Sir, are you joking? Xing Qi clenched his fists tightly, making cracking sounds. He said angrily, Don't you know that Chu Nangong and I? No, you don't know the relationship between Luo Shu and me? Of course I know. You are just Zhao Gao's dog. Dustless replied calmly, but so what? If you can't complete my mission, don't even think about knowing Gunye's location. You are purposely making things difficult for me. Xing Qi snorted unhappily and said angrily, Luo Shu's 6 sword slaves listen to Zhao Gao, but don't forget that Li Si is Zhao Gao's boss. So what? Dustless was still unmoved. It wasn't hard to tell that Li Si's status was higher than Zhao Gao's. In other words, the entire Luo Shu listens to Li Si. I'm also one of them and am under their control. That Chu Nangong is Li Si's follower. How do you want me to kill him? Xing Qi asked gloomily. He was getting angrier. So there is such a relationship. That means that Chu Nangong is on your side? But, Dustless said coldly, what does this have to do with me? You useless trash. You don't even dare to kill an old man. What's the use of keeping you? Swish, swish. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless instantly transformed into a stream of light and flew straight towards Shang-Chi. No wonder Dustless is rumored to be a godly expert. The speed is so fast. Seeing this, Shang-Chi's pupils suddenly shrank. His tiger body shook. When he was about to pull out Ju Kei, it was already too late. You're too slow. Just the moment you draw your sword is enough for me to kill you dozens of times. Dustless stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were as calm as water. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Shang-Chi. However, Shang-Chi had not even drawn his sword yet. Hearing Dustless's disdainful tone, Shang-Chi's killing intent erupted like a flood. The power in his right arm was unleashed to the maximum, and his great ravager swept out with the force of 1,000 caddies. Buzz buzz buzz. Not only that, but Great Ravager's broad blade was also emitting a transparent white light as it emitted a clear cry. You're too weak. Facing the incoming radiance, Dustless did not dodge. The white light that covered the blade was filled with boundless destructive power. Having been in this world for some time, Dustless knew that it was the so-called true Qi. Shang-Chi shouted loudly. He used all his strength and true Qi to bet on this move. Swish, swish, swish. The huge blade was about to reach Dustless's head and split it into two. However, Dustless's sudden move made Shang-Chi stunned. Even the sword that he had thrown out almost fell to the ground. After coming back to his senses, Shang-Chi was even more furious. Under the influence of anger, the power in his hand increased a little. You want to catch my attack with your bare hands? Do you think Ju Kei is a fire stick? The anger in Shang-Chi's heart surged. Dustless's actions were simple and casual. Facing Shang-Chi's incoming blade, he only calmly raised his right arm that was even more delicate than a girl's hand. It was no wonder that Shang-Chi was so angry. Taking a step back, even if Ju Kei was a fire stick, it was not something that could be caught with one hand. Dustless's disdain for him had hurt Shang-Chi's self-esteem. Boom boom boom. The thick and broad sword slammed into Wu Chen's body, and the genuine energy that covered the great sword scattered in all directions. The wooden houses on both sides of the street instantly suffered a fatal blow, and were instantly flattened by the absolute power. This is the price for looking down on me? Looking at the miserable situation around him, Shang-Chi's lips curled up slightly, revealing a proud smile. However, he looked at Dustless again. He thought that this guy would be turned into minced meat, but this is the power of Ju Kei? It's really not worth complimenting. The mocking tone fell into Shang-Chi's ears. His rough old face twitched a few times as he stared at the smiling Dustless. Shang-Chi's eyes widened a few times, almost popping out as he tried to find some wounds on Dustless's body. However, the sad thing was, after looking at him for a long time, Shang-Chi still found that Dustless was still alive and kicking. This. Shang-Chi showed a rare look of panic and shouted in disbelief. Impossible, he was attacked by Ju Kei with full power. Not only did he not die, but he is also perfectly fine. You are too weak. Dustless grabbed Shang-Chi's Ju Kei with his right hand and then raised his left fist. Seeing this, Shang-Chi's face changed slightly. He said in a low voice, "We don't have any conflicts of interest, so there is no need for an unnecessary battle. We can cooperate and take our own benefits. You have no reason to fight with me." Dustless looked at Shang-Chi with disdain and sneered, "The reason why I beat you up is not because of any benefits, but because you wasted my time for half a day and even dared to reject my conditions. If I don't teach you a lesson, where will I put my face?" Boom boom. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless's fist flew towards Shang-Chi. Chapter 1830. Looking at the incoming fist, Shang-Chi's expression changed drastically. Shang-Chi roared loudly and used all his strength to pull out the Great Ravager. However, Wu Chen's seemingly weak right hand was surprisingly strong. Shang-Chi couldn't resist at all. He was so tired that he gasped for breath, but he still couldn't pull out the Great Ravager. At the same time, Dustless's left fist was about to hit him. Shoo shoo shoo. At the critical moment, Shang-Chi decisively threw away the Great Ravager and dodged the fatal fist. As a swordsman you threw away your sword. You want to kill Chu Nangong with your level? Seeing Shang-Chi retreat, Dustless sneered and pulled the Great Ravager's body. Damn it. Shang-Chi's body was pulled back again. There was a metal chain at the hilt of the Great Ravager. It was 3 to 4 meters long. On the other end there was a metal collar around Shang-Chi's neck. As long as the Great Ravager was held by Dustless, he couldn't escape. "Get out of my way." After pulling Shang-Chi back with brute force, Dustless punched out with his left fist. Ka. Shang-Chi's sturdy chest was hit by a strong force. Ka sounds could be heard. It sounded like his sternum was broken. However, this wasn't the most horrifying thing. Shang-Chi's chest caved in and a fist mark could be seen. Pfft. Shang-Chi immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Wu Qin loosened his grip on the Great Ravager. Shang-Chi's huge body was sent flying several feet away by the punch. He lay on the ground half dead and only had a weak breath left. Weak. Seeing this, Dustless curled his lips. Just as he was about to go back, he suddenly squinted his eyes. "You too, after peeping for so long, it's time to show yourself." On the left side, in a dark alley, 2 faint shadows appeared from time to time. Although he couldn't see their specific appearance, it was obvious that one of them was tall and the other was short. Moreover, their strength was not bad and their ability to hide their aura was quite good. What caught Dustless's attention the most was the familiar scent he sensed from the short man. Both of them are from the school of Yin Yang. That brat should have formed his star soul, right? The two of them gradually walked out of the darkness. With the help of the hazy moonlight, they saw Great Si Ming and Xing Hun, one of the 2 guardians of the Yin Yang school. "Your Excellency has good skills. Shang-Chi is Zhao Gao's subordinate. To be valued by him, your strength is self-evident. However, he was defeated so easily by you. The title of number 1 in the world is indeed well-deserved." An immature yet mature voice came from the astral soul. He glanced at the half-dead Shang-Chi, and there was an unconcealable shock on his face. "Number 1 in the world? Since when did I have such a nickname?" Dustless wasn't interested in this title at all. A tall tree attracts the wind. In order to become famous, some people would definitely think of ways to challenge Dustless and replace him. It doesn't matter when it started. The point is that this title didn't bury its brilliance when it landed on you. "You deserve it," Xing Hun said calmly. "Is that so? Then I'm really shocked." Dustless pretended to be flustered. Then he looked at Great Si Ming and Xing Hun in fear and said, "Both of you came with ill intentions. Are you trying to snatch away my title of number 1 in the world?" "That's not it." Seeing Dustless's fearful look, Xing Hun's calm heart rippled. He looked unhappy. He felt that Dustless made such an exaggerated expression on purpose to mock him and Great Si Ming. "To be honest, I'm here to invite you to join the school of Yin Yang," Xing Hun said shockingly, "and the treatment will not be lower than Yueshin and I." "Join the school of Yin Yang?" Dustless frowned slightly and said bluntly, "Although you are one of the 2 great imperial masters of the Qin kingdom and the left guardian of the school of Yin Yang, you shouldn't have such authority." His status was not lower than Yueshin and Xing Hun, which meant that he was also a guardian. Dustless didn't think that Xing Hun and Great Si Ming could casually appoint someone as a guardian of the school of Yin Yang. "That's right. This is beyond my authority." Xing Hun didn't deny it. No one had the authority to do this. Of course, there was one exception. To be honest, this was promised by His Excellency Dong Huang. You don't have to worry about being deceived. Xing Hun finally mentioned an important person. Dong Huang Tai. Upon hearing this, Dustless murmured subconsciously. He looked shocked. After all, he had never met Dong Huang Tai before. However, Dong Huang Tai had promised him the position of guardian. This showed how much Dong Huang Tai valued Dustless. "It's His Excellency Dong Huang." Upon hearing Dustless call out Dong Huang Tai's name, Xing Hun reminded him unhappily. "The position of guardian is indeed tempting." Dustless smiled and nodded. Then he changed the topic and asked, "What if I refuse?" "Refuse?" Upon hearing this, Xing Hun laughed sinisterly. "Of course you can refuse. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to see the sun rise again." "Just the 2 of you?" Wu Qin snorted in disdain and mocked. "In my life, what I hate the most is the kind of idiot who doesn't have any strength but likes to be arrogant. Not to mention a mere star soul like you, even if Dong Huang Tai were to carry my palanquin, he wouldn't be worthy." "You are courting death." Xing Hun was stunned for a moment. Then a cold murderous intent shot out from his eyes. He gathered a large amount of vital energy in his hands and quickly gathered it. A huge blue invisible blade appeared in the blink of an eye. Great Si Ming, who couldn't wait to take revenge, attacked immediately. He formed a few unfamiliar warlocks with his hands and a blood-red skeleton appeared. Chapter 1831. Looks like you guys are well prepared. Dustless glanced at the blood-red skull and gave Great Si Ming a look of admiration before ignoring him. His main opponent this time was Xing Hun and not Great Si Ming. Xing Hun's strength was above Great Si Ming. Of course we are prepared. You and Xing Qi are fighting so fiercely that it's hard for others not to notice. Xing Hun stared at Dustless with his eyes burning like torches. His evil face was overflowing with demonic aura. Moreover, I would like to see how powerful you are. Having said that, Xing Hun glanced at Great Si Ming. Go to hell. Great Si Ming nodded and condensed a blood-red skull hand on his forehead. A strange cry came from it. Then it pounced on Wu Chen at an extremely fast speed. It was so fast that the naked eye could not even see it moving. Bloody skull handprint. As soon as he finished his sentence, the blood-red skull surrounded Dustless and trapped him in the skull. Bloody skull handprint? Sounds scary, but I just want to tell you that even the golden handprint is useless against me, let alone the bloody handprint. Wu Qin, who was in the depths of the blood-red skull, had a calm expression. He looked as if nothing had happened to him. This guy isn't affected? Seeing this, Great Si Ming opened his cherry lips instinctively as shock filled his face. He is indeed as mysterious and unfathomable as the rumors say. Xing Hun frowned. Dustless was the first person who was able to talk to them unscathed after being hit by the bloody skull handprint. Xing Hun naturally did not suspect that Great Si Ming had gone easy on him. The bloody skull handprint was dark red and its genuine energy was thick. The color was almost the same as real blood. Not only did Great Si Ming not reduce his strength, he even used his full strength. On the other hand, Dustless was not only unscathed, he was even humming a tune. How infuriating. You'd better restrain yourself a little. The consequences of my anger are very serious. Great Si Ming was struck hard by Wu Chen. His delicate face was now filled with killing intent, and his delicate face was now covered in a layer of cold frost. This skeleton blood handprint was Great Si Ming's proudest move, but it did not work on Dustless. Great Si Ming was really annoyed, especially when he saw Dustless's calm face. The calmer Dustless looked, the more annoyed Great Si Ming was. You bastard, give me? The night is long. Don't worry. Xing Hun waved his hand and stopped Great Si Ming, who was about to continue attacking. He looked at the crack on the ground under Dustless's feet and said, Your bloody skull handprint has indeed become more powerful. Look at the ground under Dustless's feet. Ka. Cracks visible to the naked eye appeared on the thick bluestone slabs. As time passed, the cracks grew larger and larger, gradually becoming a ghastly sight. But it's a fact that Dustless isn't affected. Great Si Ming said in a defeated tone. His best move couldn't affect Wu Chen at all, not even the most basic of effects. Look carefully. I finally understand why Wei Zhuang lost to this guy. Xing Hun took a deep breath. Upon closer inspection, he was shocked to discover that Wu Chen, who was shrouded in the blood-red skull, was surrounded by energy ripples that could be seen with the naked eye. Wave after wave, the blood-red vital energy in the skull kept attacking him. But what was unbelievable was that Wu Chen was not affected at all. The collapse of the bluestone slabs on the ground was the best example. It was enough to show the power of the bloody skull handprint. It's not that you're useless. It's just that this guy's body is ridiculously tough. With your current strength, you won't be able to move him for the time being. After a while, Xing Hun gave an answer that made Great Si Ming even more speechless. You're not trying to hurt me on purpose, are you? Great Si Ming glanced at Xing Hun with dissatisfaction. It was rare for him to grumble. Hey, the two of you have been talking nonsense for so long. Don't you dare to attack me? Dustless grumbled. Feeling bored, he glanced at the blood-red skull and an even stronger wave of energy burst out from his body. Bang bang bang. Wu Chen's body erupted with even more majestic power in an instant. The blood-red skulls that were wandering around his body were violently impacted. They did not even have room to resist and instantly disappeared without a trace. Boom boom boom. The houses on both sides of the street that were dozens of feet away were severely damaged and turned into ruins. Is this something a human can do? Great Si Ming looked at Dustless in horror. A distance of 10 feet was equivalent to 3 meters. A distance of 10 feet was naturally 33 meters. In other words, Dustless didn't even lift a finger. He just used his aura to destroy the surrounding buildings that were dozens of meters away. This is impossible. Xing Hun was also shocked. Whether Dong Huang Tai was able to do such a thing was still a question. However, a nobody like Wu Chen was able to do it. This made the two of them feel that it was a fantasy story. Before rising up, Dustless was just a nameless minor character. I finally understand why His Excellency Dong Huang thinks so highly of this guy. Such strength. A strange look flashed across Great Siming's eyes. She was one of Xing Hun's subordinates and had a certain understanding of this guardian's strength. Although he was unreasonably strong and was the rarest super genius in the Yin-Yang sect for hundreds of years, compared to Dustless, Xing Hun, who was a dazzling light, suddenly became insignificant. After all, his opponent was the inextinguishable bright moon. What are you looking at? When Xing Hun noticed the strange look in Great Siming's eyes, he was extremely displeased and warned loudly, "Stabilize your mind. Be careful and focus on dealing with your enemy." "Yes, Sir Xing Hun." Great Siming quickly turned his head around. Damn it. Xing Hun's face darkened. Even if Great Siming didn't say it, Xing Hun knew what Great Siming was thinking. Xing Hun, who had always been the main character, had become a foil to Dustless. This grievance made him extremely hostile towards Dustless. Chapter 1832. As a genius, it was inevitable that he would be arrogant. Even though Xing Hun did not show it, it was normal for geniuses to be arrogant. But now he was being looked down upon by his own subordinate. Anyone would find it hard to accept such a thing, much less someone as young as Xing Hun. As one of the two great guardians of the Yin-Yang school and the state guardian of the Qin Empire, Xing Hun's abilities were undeniable. His position was also unprecedented and was not any weaker than Yueshin. Dong Huangtai also thought highly of him. "I want to see where your limit is." Xing Hun's eyes turned cold and dark as he shot out air blades from his hands. "Ha!" With a low shout, Xing Hun's cold and desolate eyes were as swift as thunder and as swift as the wind, with a ruthless look in them. Swish, swish, swish. His two hands suddenly crossed, and the chi blades gathered between his left and right hands extended for several meters without limit. It seemed that the two huge chi blades were about to crush Wuchen. Condensing air blades? Looks good on the surface. Dustless also made a counterattack as he glanced at the cold light coming from his left and right. Boom! The corner of Wu Chen's clothes suddenly swelled up, and an extraordinary power swept out. A perfect circle of protection appeared around him in an instant. Shinra Tensei. Boom! At the same time, the sharp cold light also all blasted over. Immediately, a muffled explosion was heard. What is that? Sensing that his chi blade had struck an unknown hard object, Xing Hun's hands, which were connected to the chi blade, trembled violently. Both his arms were numb from the impact. He turned his gaze towards Wu Qin and his pupils suddenly froze. He saw a circle of protection around Dustless. The air blades were unable to break through this layer of protection. It was even more impossible to cut it apart. They could not even leave a mark. "You actually want to use such a vulgar move to defeat me? You are too childish." Dustless looked at the air blades on both sides of his body and commented disdainfully, "Xing Hun, right? A rare genius from the Yin-Yang school, right? I can't even muster up the desire to kill someone of your standard. You are too weak." Why couldn't he raise his killing intent? The reason was simple. Xing Hun was simply too weak. Dustless didn't even have the slightest bit of interest. In the past, his opponents were all far stronger than Xing Hun. "You bastard!" Xing Hun's face darkened as he finally understood what Great Siming was thinking. "What are you staring at? Come at me together." Seeing the shock on Great Siming's face, the admiration for Dustless's strength, and the fear on his face, Xing Hun was filled with anger, and all of it was directed at Great Siming. "I understand." Hearing that, Great Siming quickly nodded his head, but he was displeased with Xing Hun. "You were slapped in the face but you blame me. This is ridiculous. You deserve to be mocked and slandered." Buzz buzz buzz. Great Siming then made a few mysterious hand seals which were similar to Dustless's hand seals. Soon after, Great Siming's blood-red hands released waves of blood-red mist that could be seen with the naked eye. Then, an inexplicably strong smell of blood suddenly descended. Her hands? Dustless squinted his eyes. Great Siming's blood-red hands looked extraordinary. They were even harder than swords. In the original book, Great Siming also used this pair of hands to fight against Tianming's non-offensive technique. The school of Yin-Yang was indeed unique. If it wasn't for silver, the school of Yin-Yang would definitely be the #1 sect in the world. It was a pity that they were unlucky this time. They chose Dustless as their opponent and blocked his path. Since both parties were pursuing the 7 constellations of the Blue Dragon, someone was destined to be eliminated. Yin-Yang Palm Seal. In an instant, a yin-yang Tai Chi 8 trigrams diagram appeared, all of which were condensed from extremely dense steam. Boom boom boom. It was just a simple Tai Chi diagram, but who would have expected it to evolve into hundreds and thousands of concentrated attacks? Countless genuine Chi ripples came from the void. The school of yin-yang strength is average, but you have many dazzling techniques. Looking at the concentrated attacks, Dustless's eyes spun rapidly as he muttered, "Heavenly reflection." Boom boom boom. In the void, the flame of nirvana was ignited. The evil black flame appeared out of nowhere and devoured everything. Great Ming's technique could not escape this fate. In just a few breaths' time, it disappeared without a trace. Black flames? Great Ming's pupils constricted as he saw his painstakingly planned attack being dispelled in one go. It was as if he was pushed back by a wave of overwhelming power. He felt even more frustrated and depressed. "Are you paying attention to your back?" A sinister voice suddenly sounded. Wu Chen turned his head slightly and saw that it was Xing Han, who had a stern face. The sharp air blade pierced through Dustless's body, leaving a ghastly wound. "You're done for this time." Seeing Dustless's pierced heart, Xing Han smiled proudly. He stood with his hands behind his back and said calmly, "It's not wrong for someone like you to die in my hands." However, Xing Han was instantly dumbfounded. Bam! Wu Chen's corpse suddenly exploded. Right under Xing Han's nose, a dramatic scene of a living person disappearing and turning into a piece of wood. "Brat, that was just my doppelganger technique. Also, I would like to ask, are you paying attention to your back?" The cold figure gave Xing Han goosebumps. He turned his head and saw the expressionless Dustless. Chapter 1833. Xing Han was not the only one who was at a loss. Even Great Ming was in the same state. That strange moment just now was like a magic trick. The dead Dustless had turned into a block of wood. What made everyone speechless was that Dustless had not only turned into a block of wood, but he had also slashed Xing Han. The sharp blade radiance pierced through Xing Han's body from the back, causing him to bleed profusely. "Where did you come from?" Xing Han stared at Dustless in disbelief. His face turned even paler. "That slash just now definitely killed you." "Idiot, didn't I tell you that it was just a doppelganger technique?" Dustless shook his head and glanced at Xing Han. He mocked loudly, "You are the guardian of the school of yin-yang. You are just SOSO." Dustless looked at the ferocious Xing Han and shook his head disappointedly. "To think that I was looking forward to it. Looks like Dong Huang Tai is just SOSO. How dare you insult His Excellency Dong Huang?" Hearing that Dustless was looking down on his idol, Xing Han's cold face turned even colder. Even flames could be frozen. He mustered the last of his strength and a dangerous radiance shot out from his hands. He swept it towards Dustless without hesitation. His method was extremely cruel and bloody as he charged towards Dustless's head. Xing Han had thought that his abdomen had been pierced and that he was at the end of his tether. However, this rare genius of the school of yin-yang was indeed extraordinary. He still had the strength to struggle and used a fatal air blade at the critical moment. "You have won. You are indeed Lord Xing Han." Seeing this, Great Ming clenched his fists excitedly. His face was filled with joy. He saw that the air blade was about to hit Dustless again. However, Dustless still looked lazy and did not seem to notice it. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. He had thought that Dustless's head would be chopped off on the spot. Wenu, clang, clang, clang. The toughness of Dustless's head was too high, and indeed, something had been sliced off. However, the thing that had been sliced off was the chi blade condensed from his astral souls. As for Dustless's head, it was completely fine. What kind of monster is this? How could he be fine after being hit by a chi blade that was twice as powerful? What's more, it's in a situation where you're defenseless. Xing Han's conviction had completely collapsed and his voice was trembling. "Brat, you really know how to play tricks." Suddenly he felt an itch on his scalp. Turning his head to take a look, Dustless discovered that the broken chi blade had yet to disappear. Of course, there was also his numb astral soul. "Looks like the knife wound wasn't fatal, otherwise you wouldn't have this kind of skill." With a cold laugh, Dustless suddenly grabbed Xing Han and threw him into the air. Just as he was about to hit the ground, Dustless kicked Xing Han away like a football. Bang! The heavy kick landed on Xing Han's abdomen. Xing Han immediately rolled and crawled, flying tens of meters away. He laid on the ground miserably and had suffered an unprecedented injury. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Sir Xing Han, are you all right?" Great Si Ming hurried over and looked at the dying Xing Hun. He was disgusted by Dustless's strength. He shifted his gaze and saw Xing Hun's lazy look. When Xing Hun launched a sneak attack on Dustless, he didn't even notice it. Clearly he was distracted. It wasn't hard to see that Dustless didn't care about this battle at all. Both of them weren't on the same level. Great Si Ming, are you prepared to sacrifice yourself for the Yin-Yang sect? After glaring at Dustless viciously, Xing Hun's cold gaze landed on Great Si Ming. Ah! Hearing this, Great Si Ming was taken aback and hesitated. If he could continue living, no one would want to die. However, looking at Xing Hun's cold gaze, Great Si Ming was terrified. He knew that if he said what he was thinking, Xing Hun would be furious. He immediately changed his words. Of course, dying for the Yin-Yang sect is my life's wish. Well said, I admire you. Xing Hun nodded his head in satisfaction. If it weren't for his severe injuries, he would have applauded Great Si Ming. Move your ear closer. I have a perfect escape plan. Xing Hun hooked his finger and blew cold air. Combined with his blood-stained face, he looked extremely demonic. Sir Xing Hun, please tell me. I will do my best. Great Si Ming nodded but immediately regretted it. Xing Hun grabbed Great Si Ming's arm at lightning speed. His lips curled into a cruel smile and his cold eyes were emotionless, causing Great Si Ming to tremble. Sir Xing Hun, why are you doing this? Looking at Xing Hun's cold face, Great Si Ming sensed that something was wrong and asked. Xing Hun's cunning smile made Great Si Ming feel uneasy. Didn't you say that you could sacrifice yourself for the Yin-Yang sect? I have a perfect escape plan now and I'm counting on you to realize it, Great Si Ming. At this moment, Xing Hun grabbed Great Si Ming's right hand. Without waiting for Great Si Ming's reply, he suddenly unleashed an unimaginable force and threw Great Si Ming in the direction of Dustless. Great Si Ming, I order you to cover my retreat. It's time for you to sacrifice yourself for the Yin-Yang sect. Remember, you have to hold back Dustless for me and buy time for me to retreat. Then, under Great Si Ming's shocked gaze, Xing Hun turned and ran the moment he threw Great Si Ming. His speed was comparable to Dustless's. That bastard Xing Hun. How dare he be the guardian of the Yin-Yang sect? He's a cowardly scum. Great Si Ming regained her senses and cursed. She did say that she would sacrifice herself for the Yin-Yang sect, but she didn't say that she would sacrifice herself for Xing Hun. Xing Hun couldn't represent the Yin-Yang sect. Chapter 1834. However, no matter how much Great Si Ming hated Xing Hun, it was useless. She was about to face the unpredictable and eccentric Dustless. If there were no accidents, she would definitely die. Humph, you should feel happy that you're dying for me. You're just one of the 5 elders while I'm one of the 2 protectors. This is such a rare honor, you idiot. Xing Hun turned around and glanced at Great Si Ming. Seeing the hatred on her face, Xing Hun curled his lips disapprovingly. Great Si Ming was just one of the 5 great elders in the Yin-Yang sect. Great Si Ming was just one of them. Xing Hun did not feel that he was being too shameless. This was Great Si Ming's honor. Damn you, Xing Hun, you despicable person. Seeing Xing Hun's disappearing figure, Great Si Ming wanted to die. She cursed herself for being blind. At first, she even wanted to die together with Xing Hun. She was even prepared to perish together with Dustless. Who knew that Xing Hun would be so cunning as to use her as a shield against Dustless? Tsk, how pitiful. Dustless stared at Great Si Ming, who was full of hatred, with interest. She hated Xing Hun to death. If she could choose between the two, she would definitely choose to die with Xing Hun. In the original work, Great Si Ming respected Xing Hun. After all, Xing Hun was his superior. However, she did not expect that the so-called strongest genius in the Yin-Yang sect would be so shameless. If I were you, I would go and kill that scumbag Xing Hun now. Seeing Dustless approaching, Great Si Ming gave up resisting and seemed to have resigned herself to her fate. Kill him? I don't have the time to do that. Dustless shook his head and said, in fact, no matter where he escapes, his life is in my hands. It is up to me whether I kill him or not. You're talking nonsense. Great Si Ming snorted coldly. Initially, he thought that Wu Chen was arrogant enough. However, he had underestimated him. This fellow was completely lawless, as though everything was under his control. It was as though he was implying that killing Xing Hun was just a thought. It's up to you to believe it or not. Dustless didn't want to waste any more time. Instead, he stared at young Master Ming and said straightforwardly, you don't want to die yet, do you? Especially now, he can't wait to tear Xing Hun into pieces. So what? Great Si Ming shouted coldly. Dustless was right, she hated Xing Hun to the core. Making use of the enemy at the right time is often more effective than making use of allies. Dustless reached out and grabbed Great Sea Ming's chin. His eyes slowly turned red, and his three-tomo Sharingan made people shudder. What do you want to do? Great Sea Ming choked and clenched her fists. Looking at Dustless's evil Sharingan, she couldn't help but twitch. I'm thinking, should I torture you to death or make you my lackey? Dustless blew a breath of cold air into Great Sea Ming's ear, then said blandly, of course, it all depends on your performance. Hearing this, Great Sea Ming stared at him angrily. Dustless's words had trampled on her pride, but she didn't dare to talk back. She felt that the evil eyes were more terrifying than the wild beasts and Xinghun's cold eyes. Even her soul was trembling. Oh yes, before we meet again, I have something to ask you. Dustless suddenly thought of something and asked, did someone sneak an attack on Xinghun a few days ago? Great Sea Ming was stunned. She looked at Dustless in surprise and said in a deep voice, how did you know about this? There are only a few people in the Yinyang school who know about this. The mysterious expert who sneaked an attack on Xinghun even injured him. Moreover, the technique he used was extremely strange, similar to the Yinyang school. Many people thought that it was concubine Yen who did it. Idiot. Hearing this, Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. He thought to himself, concubine Yen didn't do it. She didn't have the time to do it. If I'm not wrong, the one who did it should be Yueshin. However, Yueshin is really smart. She actually framed concubine Yen. In this way she can clear her name and not be suspected. When Wu Qin had captured Moon Goddess alive, he had threatened her to sneak an attack on Xinghun so that he could trust Moon Goddess to be his subordinate. Now, it seemed that Moon Goddess had successfully fulfilled her part of the agreement and would be one of them in the future. The one who sneaked an attack on Xinghun is Yueshin. Looking at Great Sea Ming, Dustless ignored her shock and continued, since the incident at the Mo family's mechanical city, Yueshin has been one of my people. Don't try to fool me. Great Sea Ming rejected him without hesitation. However, Dustless's Sharingan moved slightly and the scene of him having a private conversation with Yueshin that day entered Great Sea Ming's mind in the form of an illusion. After a few minutes, Great Sea Ming looked at Dustless in disbelief. You can even make someone like Yueshin betray you? Great Sea Ming gasped. She was afraid of Dustless but at the same time she admired him. Regardless of what method he used to make Yueshin submit to him, Great Sea Ming found it unbelievable. So what's your choice? Do you want to stay on the same boat or report to hell? Looking at Great Sea Ming quietly, Dustless asked calmly. Great Sea Ming was in a dilemma. It would be great if she could live but to be Dustless's spy. She was in a dilemma and didn't know what to do. If you die then Xinghun? Alright, I promise you. It would have been better if Great Sea Ming didn't mention Xinghun. The moment Xinghun was mentioned, Great Sea Ming was furious. She gritted her teeth and agreed to Dustless's request. At least you know what's good for you. Dustless laughed secretly. He then glanced at Great Sea Ming and said, however, although you have agreed to my condition, I still can't trust you. You have to be like Yueshin and sneak an attack on Xinghun and do something similar. Only then can I barely trust that you are sincere. Chapter 1835. Are you trying to make things difficult for me? Upon hearing this, Great Sea Ming was not in a hurry to refute. Instead, she retorted angrily. She was not as powerful as the moon god and it would be difficult for her to attack Xinghun to gain Dustless's trust. There are other ways but I'm afraid you won't agree to it. Staring at Great Sea Ming's naked body, Dustless smiled maliciously. Upon seeing this, Great Sea Ming's body twitched and her face turned slightly red. She had already guessed Dustless's intention. This guy. Great Sea Ming's face darkened. She did not expect Dustless to have such dirty thoughts. She felt that even breathing in the same space was polluted. What is your choice? This is a deal and I won't force you. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly. Alright, I'll agree to it. Driven by her desire for revenge, Great Sea Ming gritted her teeth and agreed decisively. If she rejected, she would definitely be killed by Dustless. She had yet to take revenge on Xinghun and she did not want to die yet. The next morning, the wind was gentle and the sun was shining brightly. As the sun rose from the east, the sea near the Mulberry Sea was bathed in a golden glow, as if it was plated with a layer of gold. The scenery was beautiful beyond compare. Breathing in the fresh air would make people feel refreshed and full of energy. However, at this moment in a certain inn, the bedding was rolling and the bed creaked continuously. The creaking sound only stopped when the sun was high up in the sky. At the same time, the exhausted Dustless and the rosy-faced Great Si Ming crawled out of the bedding. A woman is a hero's grave. I'm so tired yesterday. Dustless was half naked and leaning on the pillow. His body was exhausted after working for an entire night. Dustless should have returned to the Little Saint Manor last night, but Great Si Ming was willing to make a deal with her. Hence, both of them found an inn and slept in each other's arms. Great Si Ming had also turned from an outsider to one of them. This was the so-called deal. Of course, Dustless had given Great Si Ming other options. However, with her ability, it was impossible for her to complete them. Hence, she could only choose the most direct and quick way. All he had to do was take a nap. How convenient. Goodbye. Great Si Ming crawled out of the bed with a cold face. She walked unsteadily and looked very unnatural. What a stubborn woman. Dustless glanced at Great Si Ming and threw a strange fruit to her. And said, "This is the devil's fruit, the magma fruit of the nature. After you eat it, your strength will increase and you will be able to kill Xing Han." That's it? Hearing this, Great Si Ming looked at Wu Qin suspiciously. The strange fruit in his hand looked neither fish nor fowl. You. Dustless rolled his eyes and did not want to waste his breath. He used the magma fruit's ability, function and some of its weaknesses into Great Si Ming's mind in the form of an illusion. It's no wonder that your strength is so shocking. Now I understand a little. After a few minutes, Great Si Ming, who had escaped from the illusion, looked at Dustless in shock. Her lips were quivering and at the same time, her resistance towards Dustless had disappeared. In every world, the strong were respected. Great Si Ming was initially against Dustless as she felt that being Dong Huang Tai's follower would have a better future. However, after being enlightened by the illusion, she understood that this handsome young man in front of her was the thickest thigh in the world. She had to cling on to him tightly. No wonder Yueshin was so obedient. Great Si Ming sighed. His gaze towards Dustless was filled with respect and even a stubborn fanaticism. His respect for Dustless was far greater than Dong Huang Tai. This was normal. No matter how powerful Dong Huang Tai was, he would not be able to escape the decay of time. After a few years he would also become a pile of bones. On the other hand, Dustless was different. He would live as long as the heavens. In this case, it shouldn't be a problem to kill Xing Han. Great Si Ming's eyes were cold as she said softly, "Why are you in such a hurry to kill him?" Dustless frowned. He could not understand Great Si Ming's thoughts. Since Xing Han is going to die anyway, what's wrong with killing him in the future? After squeezing him dry, we can let him experience the most painful death in the world. Isn't this more suitable and painful? You're right. Great Si Ming's pretty face froze. After pondering for a few seconds, she nodded in agreement. She suddenly felt that the death method Dustless mentioned was too suitable for Xing Han, who loved to show off his superiority. I'm going back to the Confucian school for the time being. My current identity in the Confucian school is called Ziqin. If there's anything, you can look for me secretly. Remember to report to me every move of the Yinyang school, especially anything related to the 7 mansions of Canglong. Dustless pulled Great Si Ming into his arms and gave her a peck on the cheek. Under her careful care, he put on his clothes and rushed back to the Little Sage Manor through the back door. At the same time, in the Little Sage Manor of the Confucian school, a large number of heavy armored soldiers from the state of Qin had gathered. Each of them was holding a long spear and had a serious look on their faces. Zhao Gao and the 6 sword slaves had all come uninvited. This included Prime Minister Li Si, Gongsun Linglong and many others. Of course, there was another person that Dustless had been paying attention to. The people from the Confucian school, especially the 3 leaders Fun Yen, Yen Lu and Zhang Liang, although they looked calm on the surface, there was a hint of worry in the depths of their eyes. These Qin soldiers obviously came with bad intentions. These elite soldiers with awe-inspiring murderous intent were the best way to show off their strength. Although Li Si used to be a disciple of the Confucian school, but now he's sincerely trying to teach the Confucian school a lesson. Fun Yen, Yen Lu, and Zhang Liang exchanged glances. They looked at the 6 sword slaves, Gongsun Linglong, and the others and frowned slightly. These people were not easy to deal with. Chapter 1836. How ironic. If I remember correctly, although Li Si is a disciple of the legalism school, his teacher is the Confucian school. Moreover, the current Sun Zi is his teacher. In the past, Han Fizi was even his classmate and good friend. Now, he is actually trying to make things difficult for the Confucian school. How lamentable. Dustless, who had just rushed back, happened to see this scene. He couldn't help but sigh. The saying that the world was unpredictable was not wrong at all. Although Li Si had a great relationship with the Confucian school, he now regarded the Confucian school as a thorn in his side and wished to get rid of it. As for the reason, it was probably because of Han Fizi and the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. Let's see what's so special about you. After thinking about it, Dustless decisively went over. In any case, he was bored. Of course, Dustless's main attention was focused on an old man. This person's hair and beard were all white, and he seemed to be under pressure as he walked. However, his eyes were bright and full of spirit. Occasionally, a strange light would flash through them. Moreover, although this old man's appearance was like a candle flickering in the wind, his aura was full of vigor and vitality. This old man was Chu Nangong. The yellow stone heavenly book that Dustless valued was also in his hands. Senior and junior brothers, why don't I see teacher? Li Si couldn't help but ask Fun Yen and the others as soon as he stepped into the beautiful little Saint Manor. To be honest, not to mention the Prime Minister, even I, a junior, haven't met Marshal Uncle Sun for many years. Fun Yen bowed slightly and cupped his fists in apology. Is that so? It's not easy to come here. Why don't we go and greet teacher? Li Si suddenly suggested. Fun Yen, Yen Lu, and Zhang Liang looked at each other, and a strange look flashed in their eyes at the same time. As the Prime Minister, Li Si was extremely shrewd. Although he was inextricably linked to the Confucian school as the Prime Minister, there might be other meanings behind everything he did. Moreover, as everyone knew, Li Si was jealous and cunning. He could even frame his own classmate Han Fizi, who knew if he had any ill intentions towards Sun Zi. However, it was obviously impossible for him to refuse Li Si without any excuse, so he had no choice but to bring Li Si to pay a visit to Sun Zi. However, perhaps Li Si was born with bad luck. What happened next was similar to what happened in the original work. Sun Zi refused to meet Li Si without hesitation. At the same time, he said that he did not have a student like Li Si. Li Si's expression changed greatly on the spot, but it just so happened that he couldn't flare up. Sun Zi was his teacher, he couldn't drag Sun Zi out and beat him up, right? The ancient people deeply believed in the principle of heaven, earth, king, family, and teacher. As the representative of the legalists, Li Si was no exception. He could only leave with his head full of bumps. However, Li Si was not someone to be trifled with. He immediately invited the reinforcements, the famous scholar Gong Sun Linglong, to debate with the scholarly faction. He swore in his heart that he would make the scholarly faction lose all face. Furthermore, Dustless, Tianming, and Xiaoyu all participated in this debate. However, the development was the same as the original work. Although Gong Sun Linglong had the appearance of a fat woman, her mouth was very sharp. Not to mention the scholarly faction's disciples, even Dustless was confused by her words. He secretly gave Gong Sun Linglong a thumbs up. This person's eloquence was unparalleled in the world. She could reverse black and white, turning wrong into right. Dustless admitted that he was inferior to her. To deal with a scoundrel like Gong Sun Linglong who lied through her teeth, he had to give her a taste of her own medicine. Thus, Tianming was given an important task by Zhang Liang. Within the scholarly faction, the one known as the stupidest disciple was Dustless. Of course, this didn't mean that Wuchen was the worst, but his attainments in learning were really not flattering. He didn't even know the Xiaozhuan characters of the Qin kingdom. But in other aspects such as riding and fighting, he was second to none in the top. The second to last battle was Tianming. At first, everyone didn't look favorably on Tianming, but the final result was shocking. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Tianming's little universe erupted and he won against Gong Sun Linglong. After scaring the white horse away, he brought a black horse over. This made Gong Sun Linglong so angry that she wanted to swallow Tianming alive. Because of Tianming, the scholarly faction managed to turn the tables with great difficulty. Trash. Li Si, who was slapped in the face again, didn't move on the surface. However, he was furious in his heart. First he was slapped in the face by Sun Zi. Then he was slapped in the face by Tianming. He had lost all face as a minister. Brothers, my useless subordinates have heard that the scholarly faction's attainments in swordsmanship are shocking. This time they have come to seek advice from the scholarly faction. Pointing at the 6 sword slaves beside Zhao Gao, Li Si finally used his trump card. This doesn't seem appropriate. Without even thinking, the head of the scholarly faction, Fun Yen, directly refused. He had heard of the 6 sword slaves before. They were extremely powerful. Even a first-rate expert like Gunia wouldn't be able to handle them, let alone these useless disciples of the scholarly faction. However, although Fu Nian didn't think it was appropriate, there were some people who wanted to slap Li Si in the face today. Zichen, this time, you will be the one to show them the swordsmanship of the scholarly faction. The person who spoke was Zhang Liang, and the Zichen he spoke of was Dustless. This guy is really trying to make Li Si look bad. Is he deliberately taking revenge on Li Si for tricking Han Fei? Sighing, Dustless finally stood up. After all, he was now a disciple of the scholarly faction. Moreover, it didn't seem like a bad idea to take the opportunity to get close to Chu Nangong. Chapter 1837. Zichen. After everyone heard this address, their eyebrows all straightened at the same time. Their gazes all turned towards the handsome young man who stood up. Zifeng, you're messing around? Fu Nian glared fiercely at Zhang Liang. Although in his eyes, Zichen's attainments in martial arts were quite deep, he was still not a match for the 6 sword slaves. After all, the other party was a famous swordsman. Every one of them was a swordsman with decent strength before they joined the Luonet. After joining the Luonet, and going through a series of hellish training, every one of them became a killing machine. On the other hand, Zichen, the Confucians were in despair. In their view, Zichen was just a 17 or 18-year-old boy. How could he be a match for the 6 sword slaves? This was a classic act of courting death. But everyone looked at the unfathomable smile on Zhang Liang's face and was puzzled. Good, not bad. You're young, but your courage is commendable. Seeing the imposing Zichen, Li Si's eyes lit up. Afraid that the Confucians would go back on their word, he hurriedly said, however, the 6 sword slaves can't bully you with numbers. You can choose one of them as your opponent. 1 against 1 was despicable enough and would be suspected of bullying the weak. If all the 6 sword slaves attacked together, Li Si was sure that he would be mocked by the world. If it's just a simple competition, then it's really too boring. At this moment, Zichen, Dustless, suddenly said to Li Si with a smile, Lord Minister, why don't we add a little variety? Add a little variety? Sounds interesting. Let's hear it. Li Si was immediately interested and said, if it's possible, I'll agree to it. Lord Minister, you're from the school of legalism, and legalism advocates rewarding those who do well and punishing those who do wrong. The final winner should be rewarded. This shouldn't be too much, right? Dustless looked at Chu Nangong and said meaningfully, this makes sense. Everyone looked at each other and thought for a moment before nodding slightly. Since it was a competition, it was normal to have some rewards. What kind of reward does everyone think is suitable? Li Si asked without hesitation. If it was just pure gold, it would be too vulgar, especially for scholars like the Confucians. In their eyes, money was just a worldly possession. Moreover, with money as a competition, they might think that Li Si was deliberately insulting the Confucians. Lord Prime Minister, there is no need to worry. Someone has already prepared the reward for Lord Prime Minister. Dustless spoke again. He looked at Chu Nangong with a smile and said, I heard that Nangong has a peerless book called the Yellowstone Heaven Book. Since Nangong is a hanger-on of the Prime Minister, why don't you use it as a reward? As soon as his voice trailed off, everyone's expression changed drastically. They all stared at Chu Nangong in shock. Nangong, I didn't expect you to have such a treasure. Hearing this, Li Si's face immediately turned ugly. His gaze was somewhat gloomy as he looked at Chu Nangong. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book had already been spread to the point that it was almost divine. In Li Si's opinion, such a good thing should be given to him by Chu Nangong. Who would have thought that this old man would hide it? The Yellow Emperor Shenyuan was one of the ancestors of China and the first ancestor of the humanities. He was known as the ancestor of China along with the Yan Emperor who was born on the shore of the Jiangshui River. He was the leader of the tribal alliance in ancient China. The first owner of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. The Yellow Emperor Shenyuan obtained the magical power by comprehending the secrets of this Yellowstone Heavenly Book and defeated Qiyu. Jiang Zia assisted King Wu of Zhou in destroying the Shang dynasty. Because of his contributions, he was awarded the title of Qi and became the ancestor of the Qi kingdom in the Zhou dynasty. He was an outstanding statesman, strategist in the history of China. The second owner of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. His attainment of the Tao in Mount Qi was related to this Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Hearing this, Chu Nangong panicked. Finally, he could no longer stay out of it like before. He glared fiercely at Dustless and hurriedly explained, Lord Prime Minister, you may not know this, but I recently obtained this book. I wanted to give it to you in a few days, but who would have thought that I would participate in the Confucian school? I have a bad memory and forgot. Forgot? How could he forget such an important thing? Everyone disagreed with this ridiculous excuse. Then Nangong, what are your plans? Li Si looked at Chu Nangong meaningfully and dragged his voice as he asked meaningfully. Of course I'm willing to give it to you with both hands. No, I'm willing to give it to you as the winner. Chu Nangong quickly changed his words. If he gave it to Li Si directly, it would be hard to avoid being criticized. It was better to give it to him as the winner of the competition. After all, the person who would get the Yellowstone Heavenly Book in the end would be Li Si. Chu Nangong did not think that Dustless could defeat the 6 sword slaves. Such a peerless book is going to fall into Li Si's hands. Everyone sighed in their hearts. They were afraid that Li Si would have to give it to Ing Zheng again. No one could get it. Idiots, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book is mine. You mortals want to take it for yourselves. You overestimate yourselves. Dustless sneered in his heart when he saw this. What is this guy's intention? Zhang Liang's eyes stared at Dustless. His view was very different from others. He believed that the final winner would be Dustless. Within the Confucian school, only Zhang Liang knew the identity of Dustless. Not to mention that he was just one of the 6 sword slaves. Even if all of them besieged Dustless, Zhang Liang believed that the winner would be Dustless. However, before this, when Dustless entered the Confucian school, he deliberately dressed up and changed his appearance. No one knew that this Zi Qin in front of them was the wanted Dustless. Chapter 1838. This old thing. How dare he hide such an important thing from me? Li Si's expression was calm on the surface, but in his heart, endless ripples were set off. Li Si had been slapped in the face by the Confucian school, and the Prime Minister's stomach was big enough to support a boat. However, even his own people had lied to him. A Confucian school disciple knew that Chu Nangong had the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, but Li Si, as the Prime Minister, had no idea. Especially since Chu Nangong was his follower, Li Si was furious. I'll deal with you when we get back. Li Si looked away from Chu Nangong's head and finally looked at Zhao Gao's head. Zhao Gao, who do you think is more suitable to fight? Remember, this is a sword debate. Don't overdo it. Li Si said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Zhao Gao stood up respectfully. He cupped his fist and reported to Li Si, Prime Minister, since you said don't overdo it, Wanshan will be fine. As soon as he said that, a man covered in yin qi stepped forward. He looked very evil. He wore a mask with a huge spider embedded in it. It was impossible to tell what he looked like. However, anyone could tell that this guy was not a good person. He was definitely not a good person. Not bad. Seeing this, Li Si nodded with satisfaction. An imperceptible smile appeared on his face. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book is mine. Li Si thought so. Of course, Dustless thought so too. Clang, clang, clang. There was a flash of cold light in the void. Wanshan's sword was unsheathed. He pointed at Dustless's throat and said coldly, Pretty boy, draw your sword. Don't waste my time. This guy, hearing Wanshan's arrogant tone, everyone was unhappy. This Wanshan of the 6 sword slaves was already suspected of bullying the weak. Now he was shamelessly looking down on others. He was really shameless. On the other hand, Zhao Gao and Li Si did not care. They only cared about the result. It's just a dog. Dustless lifted his lips and mumbled something. Although it was as soft as a mosquito, everyone heard him clearly. That was especially true of Wan Shen, who was the closest to Dustless. His eyes looked cold. Everyone else heard him clearly. Chaos God was no exception. Brat, fists and feet are silent. You better be careful. Dustless's words made Chaos God really angry. If Li Si and the others had said something like that, it would have been fine. After all, that was someone else's identity. But Dustless, to put it nicely, he was just a Confucian student, yet he dared to look down on him. He simply didn't know how to write the word death. Even though Li Si had told him not to overdo it, bumps were inevitable. It was normal for him to accidentally kill Dustless. In the end, he just needed to do a clean job. Plus, Chaos God had made up his mind. Even if he could not kill Dustless, he was going to cripple him. He had brought this upon himself. What is he planning to do with the Yellowstone Heaven Book? Zhang Liang had been thinking hard. Even though the battle had not started yet, he already had an idea of the result of this competition. Chaos God, one of the 6 sword slaves of the Luonet, was going to lose. Is he going to give it to someone else? Zhang Liang's eyes shone brightly. Dustless did not even know how to read, let alone a book like the Yellowstone Heaven Book. Other than giving it to someone else to study, Zhang Liang could not think of any other reason. Draw the sword? I don't have a sword. How can I draw it? Why don't we fight with our bare hands? Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. Taking out the heaven-gathering cloud sword in front of everyone would be too shocking. Take it. It's just a normal competition. No need to be nervous. Just do your best. At that moment, an unexpected person gave his own sword to Dustless. This is Big Brother's Taya? Everyone was in disbelief as they stared at the seemingly crude greatsword. Everyone's breathing became heavier. Especially Zhang Liang and Yen Lu. They were all dumbfounded as they stared at Fun Yen, who had a resolute face. It seems like Big Brother wants Zichen to use Taya. He wants the quality of the sword to be better than Chaos God's. But the second in command of the Confucian school of thought, Yen Lu, shook his head. The most important thing about swordsmanship was the person using the sword. Take Gunia for example. In the original novel, even if his abyss rainbow was broken, he could still fight against an expert like Xing Hun with a wooden sword. Swords are not suitable for me. Dustless glanced at Tai A, which Zimu had given him. He saw Zimu looking at him with envy, jealousy, and hatred. He immediately rejected it. Swords were elegant objects. They were suitable for gentlemen like Fun Yen and Zhang Liang. However, they were not suitable for Dustless. Compared to swords, Dustless preferred to use simple and rough knives. Kid, if you want to fight me with your bare hands, I don't mind. Chaos God, one of the 6 sword slaves, said coldly. His sharp long sword was already at Dustless's throat. It seemed like he had no intention of throwing away his sword. So shameless. Seeing this, the Confucian school of thought cursed in their hearts. The 6 sword slaves were terrifying existences in the Jianghu. It was already shameless enough to fight against the Confucian school of thought. Now they wanted to use their swords to fight against Dustless, who was barehanded. Enough. Even Li Si could not stand it anymore. Chaos God was too shameless. This kid is the one. We can't change him. Li Si looked at Dustless with burning eyes. If Ruguang was replaced by Zhang Liang or Fun Yen, it was uncertain who would win in a 1v1 situation. If Chaos God lost, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book would disappear. Chapter 1839. There was no doubt that even a sword saint, like Gunia, or an expert with the number 1 sword in the world, would not be able to gain an advantage against the 6 of them. But if it was a one-on-one fight, what were the chances of victory? Especially against experts like Yen Lu and Zhang Liang, Li Si did not understand. Why not? It's enough to take care of a Confucian disciple. Li Si frowned as he looked at Dustless and impatiently said, Finish this quickly. I still have many trivial matters to attend to. I don't have time to waste. Just pick up some trash to deal with him. If we delay, things might change. Dustless was too lazy to waste words. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a ripple appeared in his palm, and a slender katana emerged from thin air. What kind of ability is this? Everyone noticed Dustless's abnormality and they all looked surprised. Everyone was shocked by this move. The unknown tachi that could cut iron like mud was shining with cold light and was overflowing with an ominous murderous aura. Holding the tachi in his hand, Wu Qin seemed to have found his original soul in an instant. His whole body radiated a unique temperament. Everyone felt a trace of indescribable oppression. There was a faint evil smile at the corner of his mouth. Everyone frowned slightly when they saw Wu Chen's abnormality. What's wrong with this kid? Li Si could no longer maintain his calm expression. For some reason, when he saw Dustless's faint smile, he felt like an idiot who had been played by a brat. At this moment, Li Si had an ominous premonition that a great disaster was about to befall him. Should I switch people out at the last minute? Li Si hesitated, and a rare cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He had never had such a headache before, even when he had encountered a difficult national matter. But who can I switch out? Li Si shook his head when he saw the cold faces of the 6 sword slaves. He would never do something as shameless as a 6v1. If it were Fun Yen and the others, it would be fine, but to deal with a Confucian disciple, Li Si estimated that he would be labeled as shameless by the world in the future. Should I use her? Retracting his gaze from the 6 sword slaves, Li Si looked at the beautiful girl on his right. The girl had a head of long and thin purple hair. Her face was covered by a veil, so it was impossible to tell what she looked like. The girl's eyes were extremely tranquil and serene, unmoving. Her gem-like eyes were as calm as an ancient well, giving people the feeling that even if the sky were to collapse, it would have nothing to do with her. This person was young Arbiter Ming of the school of Yin Yang. It's even more inappropriate to expect her to fight. At the same time, Li Si retracted his gaze from young Master Ming. He was a shrewd man. Although the Yinyang school and the Qin state were allies, they were still two different people. The importance of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was self-evident. Who knew if the school of Yinyang would be moved? It was rumored that after comprehending the Heavenly Book, one would obtain inconceivable power. Wasn't this what the school of Yinyang pursued? Why does he look so familiar? Although Xiaoxi Ming looked emotionless on the surface, a faint ripple had appeared in her heart. She kept staring at Dustless from the corner of her eyes. Although Dustless had disguised himself, Xiaoxi Ming couldn't help but think of a wanted person, Dustless. No matter how a person disguised himself or changed his appearance, his aura could never be changed. I remember that Xing Hun was the one who came to find trouble with the school of Yinyang. I didn't expect it to be her this time. Dustless also stole a few glances at Xiaoxi Ming from the corner of his eyes. He couldn't help but sigh. Even without Xing Hun, the Yinyang school still sent young Master Ming. Of course, the main reason was Dustless. Xing Hun was severely injured by him last time. Even if he was lucky and didn't die, he probably had one foot in the door of hell and was still recuperating. Therefore, it was young Master Ming's turn to find trouble with the school of Yinyang. But this girl is really beautiful at such a young age. Dustless muttered to himself. The veil covering young Master Ming's face was as good as non-existent to Dustless. He could see her beautiful face with one glance. Kid, go and die. Just as Dustless stole glances at young Master Ming, Luanshan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. It was just a fight, but Dustless's hesitation had already ignited the flames in his heart. Experts usually wouldn't get angry easily, but once they did, the consequences would be extremely severe. Luanshan was one such example. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp sword light went straight for Dustless's eyes. It was extremely tricky. Be careful. He's too despicable. The school of Yinyang reminded loudly, cursing Luanshan for being shameless and despicable. He launched a sneak attack without saying anything. This guy's shamelessness wasn't any worse than Li Si's. Despicable? Hearing this, Zhao Gao's face was filled with mockery. He glanced at the school of Yinyang and snorted disdainfully. These people were destined to be gentlemen. That was why they would be wiped out in the end. Too slow. Dustless's unbelievably calm tone popped out of his mouth. Then, the tachi in his hand swept out, and a weak sword attack emerged. This scene was too fast. It happened in the blink of an eye. Only the top experts could see it. Luanshan suddenly felt a piercing pain on his cheek. It was as if someone had torn it apart. It was extremely painful. Then drops of blood kept dripping down. How boring. Ignoring everyone's shocked eyes, Dustless said, "It's not too late to admit defeat after a few rounds. Who would have thought that you would lose everything in an instant?" Chapter 1840. He lost just like that? Seeing this, Li Si's eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost. The dignified Prime Minister looked like a country bumpkin at this moment. He had completely lost his image. Of course, it was not just Li Si. Everyone's expression was as exaggerated as his. The only people who remained calm were Zhang Liang, Tian Ming, and Xiao Yu, who knew Dustless's identity. Impossible, he lost. Zhao Gao saw the scary wound on Chaos God's face. He could not believe what he was seeing. He screamed. This is the truth. Dustless glanced at him in boredom. He did not have a good impression of this eunuch. Prime Minister, should you announce the outcome now? Staring at Li Si, who was in a daze and seemed to have lost his soul, Wu Qin deliberately dragged his voice. Hearing this, the corners of Li Si's mouth twitched twice. Thinking about how the cooked duck had flown away, he felt especially depressed in his heart. If it was an ordinary thing, then so be it. With Li Si's status, he wouldn't care. But the importance of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was not inferior to a great secret like the Azure Dragon's 7 mansions in Li Si's heart. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was a unique book. Everyone who was fated with it would have extraordinary achievements in the end. The Yellow Emperor Xianyuan and Jiang Taigong were the same. Li Si wanted to have it even in his dreams. However, sadly, Luanshan, who he trusted, was killed by the enemy in one strike. Li Si's heart was suddenly filled with despair. He glared at Zhao Gao with fire in his eyes. It was all his fault for choosing Luanshan to fight Dustless. It's none of my business. Seeing this, Zhao Gao wanted to cry but had no tears. He did not expect Dustless to be so abnormal. Humph, kid, you broke the rules. This round does not count. You should be annulled. At this moment, Zhao Gao suddenly had an idea and threatened, "Did you forget what the Prime Minister said? You used a sword to injure someone. This is a serious crime. That's right. Hearing this, Li Si took the opportunity to put on airs and shouted, "Why did you deliberately injure someone? How shameless." Seeing this, all the Confucian disciples glared angrily, including Fu Nian and Zhang Liang. Even Yen Lu, who rarely got angry, frowned. Although it's said to stop when it's appropriate, bumps and bruises are unavoidable. He was the one who said that. Dustless pointed at Luanshan, who had a bloody scar on his cheek, and said lazily, "Also, he released a murderous aura towards me before. Why didn't the magistrate say that he broke the rules?" Zhao Gao was the prefectural magistrate of Zhongche Prefecture. Hearing that, Zhao Gao was speechless. He looked at Luanshan and cursed, "Useless piece of trash. This is what you get for looking down on others." Damn it, Chaos God was embarrassed and angry. He touched the wound on his face. Just as he was about to raise his sword to fight, Dustless said something that made him put down his hand. "You've already lost. If you point your sword at me again, I'll take it as an act of seeking death." Rice bucket, back off. Li Si glared at Luanshan with his cold eyes. His expression changed rapidly and finally he acted shamelessly. "Sai, I'm old and my memory is not good. I forgot to say before that this competition is a best of 3. All the rules are set by you. What else is there to compete?" Fu Nian, who couldn't bear it anymore, snorted and said, "Since that's the case, our Confucian school admits defeat. 2 out of 3 matches it is. Do as you please." Dustless immediately expressed a different opinion and refuted Fu Nian's opinion. He had finally found an excuse to snatch the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. How could he give up just because of Fu Nian's words? Moreover, what could a best of 3 change? He would still lose. Since it's a best of 3, then the next round. An unexpected beautiful figure came out to disturb the situation. Her elegant purple hair was like a fairy descending from the sky. Her light voice caused everyone to be startled, and they were unable to extricate themselves from her intoxication. "It's you?" Dustless frowned. He helplessly found that the person who challenged him was young Master Ming of the School of Yinyang. Sure enough, the School of Yinyang also wants the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Li Si's face turned ugly. The School of Yinyang had a high position in Ing Zheng's heart. Once the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was taken away by the School of Yinyang, it was almost impossible to make them spit it out. "We were the ones who lost this competition, so we'll win it back," the rest of the slaves of the 6 Swords suggested to Zhao Gao. Unexpectedly, Zhao Gao just asked them to get lost. "You're just a few pieces of trash. How can you be brave when you're just a general of a defeated army?" "Shut up." In the end, this matter had nothing to do with Zhao Gao. However, the slaves of the 6 Swords had lost and caused Li Si to hold a grudge against him. It was especially sad and felt like a fish in the moat. "Sending a little girl to fight me? How can I do that?" Dustless deliberately scratched his head and put on an embarrassed look. "You feel embarrassed? That's fine. Since you don't have the heart to fight, then you should take the initiative to quit and give the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to me." It was rare for young Master Ming, who was usually quiet, to be talkative. "What a joke. How can I give this thing away so easily?" Hearing this, Dustless scolded in his heart and rolled his eyes. If it was an ordinary thing, he wouldn't mind giving it away. However, he was determined to get the Yellowstone Heavenly Book and the 7 constellations of the Azure Dragon. "If you don't want it, then cut the crap and do it quickly." The steam in Great Master Ming's body was rolling. With a light tap of her hand, a genuine energy vortex appeared. Then, countless green leaves were under her control and were easily sucked into the vortex in her palm. Then, under everyone's surprised gaze, a long whip made entirely of green leaves was formed in an instant. Chapter 1841. Young Arbiter Ming looks like she's only in her teens. She's probably not much older than Xing Han. Dustless nodded in admiration. He looked at Li Si and asked, "Minister, this is the last time, right? There won't be a best of 5 rule again, right?" Li Si was embarrassed by Dustless's question. To be honest, he had lost all his face as a minister by acting shamelessly in front of a Confucian disciple. "Brat, how dare you!" Zhao Gao's eyes turned cold. He had felt that Dustless was strange since the beginning. He didn't seem like a simple Confucian disciple. The Confucian school pursued the path of a gentleman. They usually convinced people with reason and wouldn't bully people with power. Therefore, the swordsmanship used by the Confucian school was filled with righteousness. However, the moment Wu Chen held the blade, his temperament changed drastically. The overbearing aura of pointing the sword at the sky made everyone feel small and insignificant. This kind of overbearing swordsmanship was definitely not from the Confucian school. This Ziqin is indeed a little strange. Zhao Gao wasn't the only one who saw the problem. The head of the Confucian school, Fu Nian, also saw the abnormality. Most of the Confucian school only knew how to use swords. Sabers were a relatively crude weapon. It didn't match the elegance of the Confucian school and conflicted with the teachings of the Confucian school. All in all, the Confucian school basically used swords. However, in Dustless's eyes, sabers and swords were no different. A weapon that could kill was the best. This is the last time. If you win, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book will be yours, Li Si said expressionlessly. However, he squinted his eyes and looked at Dustless. Brat, how dare you trick me? Just wait and see. Li Si knew that he had been tricked. The culprit was this seemingly harmless young man in front of him. Swish swish swish. As soon as Li Si finished speaking, young Arbiter Ming launched a fatal attack. The green whip contained an unimaginable sharpness and swept towards Dustless's face. So weak. Dustless blinked his eyes and stared at the long whip coming from the left. He raised the tachi in his hand and slashed it down. Puchi. The seemingly extraordinary green leaf whip was exceptionally fragile under the overwhelming power, and was brutally cut apart by Dustless. Such strength. Xiao Ximing's nose slightly wrinkled. Dustless could clearly see the girl's surprise even with the veil covering her face. Great Ximing and Moon God are already my people. Let alone you? Dustless laughed in his heart. Moon God's position was higher than Great Ximing's, but she was still one of his people, let alone young Ximing in front of him. I'll just make your Yinyang school my own people and turn Dong Huang Tai into a general without an army. Dustless chuckled in his heart. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. It was as if he could already see Dong Huang Tai's pitiful look when he was betrayed after knowing the truth. Umph. Seeing Dustless's silly smile, Xiao Ximing's eyes flashed dangerously. How dare he think of other things while fighting with her? Wasn't this looking down on her? Shoo shoo shoo. Xiao Ximing waved her hand lightly. True qi gushed out, and a weak whirlpool quietly appeared on her palm again. Buzz buzz buzz. The leaves that were cut off by Dustless floated up again. Following Xiao Ximing's will, they all flew towards Dustless at lightning speed. Shoo shoo shoo. The dense green leaves emitted a dangerous sharpness, refracting a gloomy cold light. Every green leaf was like a blade. Puchi, puchi, puchi. In the blink of an eye, the floating green leaf pierced through Dustless's body at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, an extremely bloody scene unfolded. They pierced through Dustless's chest and one could even see the white bones inside. Puke 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 puke. Having never seen such a bloody scene, the disciples of the school of Moism started to vomit. You killed someone? Seeing this, Fu Nian was furious. Seeing Dustless's miserable face, his anger exploded. He knew that he had been patient enough, but he didn't expect the school of Yin Yang to be so bold. Killing a Confucian disciple in front of the Confucian school of thought, wasn't this slapping the Confucian school of thought's face? Little Saint Zhuang Wuxin participated in the Jianghu feud, but you are too presumptuous. Fu Nian's cold gaze swept across young Judge Ming. The Taiya sword in Fu Nian's hand had already been unsheathed, and a fatal pressure spread out. Now that the Confucian disciple was killed, he would be laughed at if he, the school of thought, continued to remain silent. However, Xiao Ximing remained unmoved. Seeing Wu Chen's body, she couldn't help but feel a little strange. Her mouth moved slightly. Just as Xiao Ximing was about to open her mouth, her beautiful eyes suddenly shrank. Game over. At this moment, a straight tachi was pressed against Xiao Ximing's throat. Aren't you dead? Li Si couldn't help but ask in surprise. When he saw Dustless's miserable state, he also felt nauseous. However, when Li Si looked at Dustless's body again, it had already turned into a piece of destroyed wood. Dead? Hearing this, Dustless smiled. To put it bluntly, it was just a random clone technique, and it wasn't Dustless's real body. Lord Xiangguo is right, but the dead me is just a piece of wood. You. Looking down at the tachi on her throat, Xiao Ximing clenched her fists tightly, looking rather unwilling. There's always someone better. Although your school of Yin Yang isn't bad, it's not invincible. Especially you've chosen the wrong opponent. Admit defeat. Chapter 1842. It wasn't that Dustless was toying with young Master Ming. Even if he was, it couldn't be helped. Young Master Ming's strength couldn't pique Dustless's interest. He could only play with her casually. This technique is somewhat similar to Shu Mountain's one-leaf vision. Young Master Ming gritted her teeth and pouted. She seemed to be extremely dissatisfied. To a certain extent, it is indeed similar. However, one-leaf vision is an illusion to confuse the enemy. Mine is just a simple doppelganger technique. It isn't used to confuse the enemy. There is a fundamental difference. Dustless stared at young Master Ming's veiled face and explained. Lord Minister, you can announce the final result. Looking at Li Si, Dustless said plainly, although it's best of 3, I've already won 2 rounds. There's no need to continue. Zhao Gao and the others, as well as Li Si, looked at the handsome young man in a daze. They were a little absent-minded. When they were Dustless's age, they only knew how to play around all day. This competition is over. The Confucian disciple, Zichen, wins. Li Si announced loudly. When these words fell, everyone was a little stunned. Young Master Ming of the Yinyang School and Chaos God of the 6 Sword Slaves had lost so easily. It was somewhat difficult for everyone to accept. After all, their opponent was just a Confucian disciple. Moreover, he was the type that ranked last. This is good. It's better than falling into the hands of the Yinyang School. Everything was already done. Li Si also felt relieved. If the Yellowstone Heavenly Book fell into the hands of the Yinyang School, they would definitely not be able to take it back. However, Dustless, kid, I'll deal with you when I have time. I'll let you live for a while longer. Li Si withdrew his cold gaze and chatted with Fun Yen for a while before leaving. Before leaving, he didn't forget to look at Dustless a few more times. It was as if he wanted to engrave that face in his heart forever. I won't lose to you next time. Young Master Ming said as she brushed past Dustless. She then turned around and looked at Dustless suspiciously. From the first moment she saw him, she felt that this guy looked familiar. Hee hee, Dustless chuckled nonchalantly. Actually, I want to lose a few times as well. But after so many years, I've always been winning. Life is really as lonely as snow. Just you wait. Hearing this, Xiao Ming was choked by Dustless's words and almost couldn't help but slap him. Dustless's arrogant expression was really annoying. It's a given that you can't recognize me, young Master Ming? Dustless's entire body was now disguised and he had even grown taller. There was a big difference between him and the old Dustless, so it was normal that young Arbiter Ming didn't recognize him. Oh right. Dustless turned into a gust of wind and walked in front of Chu Nangong. If it's not convenient for Nangong to send the Yellowstone Heavenly Book over, I'll take the initiative to go to your residence and get it. Although this old man is old, I don't need you to run errands for me. I can do it myself. Chu Nangong snorted and refused. His heart was bleeding. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was a peerless treasure. He hadn't even gotten to use it yet, and now he had to change owners. It was as if a large piece of his flesh was cut off by Dustless. It was very uncomfortable. What gave Chu Nangong the most headache was that he had offended Li Si because of this incident. This brat is going to kill me. Looking at Dustless, Chu Nangong was furious. Everyone knew about Li Si's ruthlessness. This brat could even kill his own schoolmate and good friend, let alone others. Take care. At the entrance of the Sage Manor, a group of people watched Li Si's group leave. Zichen, come over here. Fun Yen looked at Dustless seriously and asked, do you know that your life was hanging by a thread today? If it weren't for the Confucian family and the unsuitable location, perhaps Li Si would have ordered the 6 sword slaves of the net to kill you. It's a pity that they didn't take action in the end. Dustless shrugged and said indifferently, moreover, didn't we turn the danger into safety in the end? When facing the enemy, we have to press forward and not compromise. Retreating won't lead to a boundless sea and sky. It will only lead to an even more violent storm. Seeing this, Fun Yen also had a headache. He had also heard of this Zichen. He was famous for his wild nature and was even weirder than Ziming. At the very least, Tianming knew a few words. On the other hand, Dustless didn't know a single word, but he had a lot of principles. Sometimes he even made Fun Yen speechless. In fact, Dustless couldn't be blamed for being illiterate. If a modern person was called to ancient times, 99% of them wouldn't be able to recognize the words of this era. Senior brother, no matter what, the Confucian family's face was preserved. This is Zichen's credit. Compared to the meticulous Fun Yen, Yen Lu was much gentler. He didn't think that Dustless was wrong. Instead, he felt that he had gone overboard and saved the face of the Confucian family. Second senior brother's words make sense. Zhang Liang also took the opportunity to interrupt. You still dare to talk about credit? What kind of behavior is it to fight Li Si and the net, head-on? It's simply setting fire to yourself. Don't forget Li Si's identity, the Prime Minister of the Empire. The people don't fight with the officials. If we continue to fight blindly, we will definitely suffer losses. Han Fei is the outcome. Do you want to push the little sage manor into a place of no return? Fun Yen stared at Yen Lu and Zhang Liang's face, rolled his eyes and shouted angrily. You guys can quarrel slowly. Hearing that Fun Yen and the other two were educating each other, Dustless tactfully left. This was an internal matter of the Confucian family. There was no need for him to meddle in other people's business. He just needed to wait for Chu Nangong to send the Yellowstone Heavenly Book over. Chapter 1843. Li Si and the rest left in a hurry and came back in a hurry. Li Si, who had come to pick a fight today, had lost all his face. After being slapped in the face a few times, he might not be able to maintain his dignity as the Prime Minister. It was inevitable that he would become a laughing stock. At this moment, Xing Hun, who had been severely injured by Dustless, was slowly waking up. Lord Xing Hun, this is the corpse god curse goo? Great Si Ming stared at the worm in Xing Hun's hand and asked in surprise. However, there was a cold glint in his eyes. Now that Great Si Ming was one of Dustless's men, he had to report something as vicious as the corpse god curse goo to Dustless. That's right, Xing Hun nodded grimly and said through gritted teeth, I used this to deal with Dustless. That guy is too strong and unreliable. I can only use the corpse god curse goo to deal with him. If he can't use his genuine chi, he will definitely die. When he mentioned Dustless, Xing Hun's bandaged wound started to hurt intensely again. Due to Dustless, he had narrowly escaped death previously. However, he was quite lucky. He did not die completely and managed to reach the Yinyang sect stronghold in Shanghai in time. After a series of treatments, he was slowly recovering. As for you, Xing Hun stared at Great Si Ming meaningfully and said, I didn't expect you to escape from Dustless. I find it unbelievable. I also find it unbelievable that I have become one of Dustless's men and obtained such extraordinary strength. This is all thanks to you, Xing Hun. In the end, I even have to thank you. Great Si Ming sneered in his heart and hated Xing Hun to death. However, he maintained his composure and said, that guy is very lecherous. I managed to escape when he was careless. Is that so? Hearing this, Xing Hun glanced at Great Si Ming meaningfully. Soon after, he said in a sinister voice, Then, is it all right for me to check the inside of your mind? This will prove your innocence. Having said that, Xing Hun stared at Great Si Ming viciously. However, Great Si Ming was no longer the same as before. He pretended to be flustered, but his heart was as calm as a mountain as he calmly thought of a solution. It was impossible for him to search Xing Hun's memories. Is it appropriate to kill him or not? Great Si Ming hesitated. Dustless's order was to squeeze Xing Hun dry. If he killed Xing Hun now, he would be going against Dustless's order. This damned astral soul is indeed not a good thing. Great Si Ming was in a bad mood. If it wasn't for Dustless's previous orders, he would have slapped this scum to death. Putting aside the fact that Xing Hun had thrown him down as a meat shield, he was even afraid that he would betray the Yinyang school and wanted to read her mind. Great Si Ming hated Xing Hun to the core. Lord Xing Hun, at that moment an ethereal voice came. Han Xin turned his head and saw that it was Moon God who had walked over safely. Oh, so it's Lord Moon God. Xing Hun's sinister eyes were filled with surprise. He didn't expect Moon God to take the initiative to look for him. The two of them had always been harmonious on the surface but were actually at odds with each other. There had been many open and secret fights between them. However, with Dong Huang Tai suppressing them, it wouldn't be a big problem for them. Great Si Ming is the Fire Division Elder of the Five Spirits Mystic Sameness. You don't have the right to read her mind. Moon God stood on Great Si Ming's side, which was rare. I think Lord Dong Huang won't agree to this either. Hearing this, Xing Hun's expression froze, and his cold gaze gradually softened. He smiled and said, Moon Goddess, please don't think that I'm so cold and heartless. She's one of us. I won't use my mind-reading technique on her. I was just joking with Great Si Ming. Who would believe you? Great Si Ming snorted in his heart and scoffed at Xing Hun's words. At the same time, he was getting more and more dissatisfied with the school of Yinyang and decided to side with Dustless. He already had that kind of relationship with Dustless and they couldn't be separated. Now that Xing Hun was so cold, Great Si Ming had lost all hope in the school of Yinyang. He would rather follow Dustless. Just the temptation of the devil fruit was enough to make him unable to resist, let alone the school of Yin Yang being so heartless. I'm going to change my dressing. Goodbye. His wound started to hurt. Xing Hun couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Moon God. Now that he was in such a sorry state, he would definitely lose if he bickered with Moon God. I didn't expect you to be that guy's man. The moon deity stared at Great Ximing, her eyes were filled with emotions and her mind was in a mess. The school of Yin Yang had been ruined by Wu Chen. Dustless had secretly informed Moon God and requested her to work with Great Ximing. Anyway, everything is too complicated. We can only blame that guy for being too powerful and we can't defeat him, Great Ximing said with a helpless expression. He was deeply afraid of Dustless's terrifying strength. In the face of absolute strength, one had to obey even if he didn't want to. Otherwise he would only be digging his own grave. That's right. Moon God nodded gently and said in a deep voice, Dustless once asked me to get close to Yun Zhongjuan secretly and see if he could refine the elixir of immortality. Elixir of immortality? I find it unbelievable. Great Ximing wasn't surprised. It was normal for everyone to want to live forever. Just now, I heard an interesting plan from His Excellency East Emperor. It was a secret plan on how to deal with our new leader, Dustless. The Moon God's words were shocking, and there was a hint of worry in her voice. Chapter 1844. Since when did Great Ximing and the Moon Goddess get so close? Xing Hun walked alone in the pavilion with a suspicious look on his face. To be honest, he was shocked that the Moon Goddess suddenly stood on Great Ximing's side. He was even caught off guard. To a certain extent, Xing Hun had always treated Great Ximing as one of his men, but now, forget it, it's best to find a chance to get rid of Great Ximing. Xing Hun's eyes were cold. No matter what, he would never trust Great Ximing again. Although Great Ximing was respectful to him on the surface, Xing Hun was sure that Great Ximing hated him to the core. This was normal. Anyone would be filled with hatred if they were betrayed by their own people. Moreover, Great Ximing suddenly stood on the side of the Moon Goddess, which explained everything. However, right at this moment, an unexpected figure suddenly appeared before Xing Hun's eyes. After seeing that beautiful figure, a rather perfect plan immediately surfaced in Xing Hun's mind. After thinking for a while, Xing Hun felt that it was feasible and decisively chased after her. Young Ximing, you don't look too good. Xing Hun suddenly blocked young Ximing's path. Although the latter was covered by a veil, Xing Hun could still see her ugly face clearly. Lord Xing Hun. Young Ximing responded softly and did not say anything else. As for the reason, she did not mention it either. Could it be that you failed to cause trouble at the Sage Manor? The quick-witted Xing Hun guessed secretly with a strange expression. However, when he thought of his plan, he could not be bothered to ask further. The Sage Manor was just a small problem. Now that Dustless had become his sore point, he had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Otherwise he would be traumatized. I thought of a perfect plan to get rid of Dustless. If what Great Ximing said was true, then we can definitely take Dustless's head. Xing Hun said excitedly. What plan? Young Ximing was also interested and asked curiously. To the Confucian school of Yin Yang, their strongest enemy was not the Confucian school of Mo, or Taoist school. It was just one person, Dustless. However, young Master Ming quickly sensed that something was amiss. She saw Xing Hun staring at her with a fervent expression. A strange sense of unease spread through her. I heard from Great Ximing that Dustless is a pervert. Therefore, young Ximing, you will be in charge of seducing that guy. Once you find a suitable opportunity, kill that brat for me. Xing Hun revealed his plan without hesitation. If Dustless was really lustful, he would definitely be tempted by Xiao Ximing. Getting rid of him would be a matter of course. If young Ximing failed, it would mean that what Great Ximing said earlier was false. Xing Hun could also use this as an excuse to get rid of Great Ximing. This was a perfect plan to kill two birds with one stone. You want me to seduce Dustless? Is this Lord Xing Hun's perfect plan? At this moment, even the reticent young Master Ming was shocked by Xing Hun's plan. Of course, this was all due to anger. How could such a plan be called perfect? He was completely harming his own people. Don't you think this plan is suitable? This is for the school of Yin Yang. Xing Hun glanced at young Master Ming, who seemed to be resisting. His face was filled with dissatisfaction, as if he was unhappy that young Master Ming was doubting his plan. Seeing Xing Hun's cold gaze, Xiao Ximing subconsciously swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Young Master Ming was extremely disgusted by this sinister plan. Perhaps it would succeed, but after this incident, there would definitely be victims of the plan's success. One would naturally be Dustless, and the other would be young Master Ming herself. Xing Hun's plan was indeed good, but he did not consider the feelings of others. However, this fellow was used to being arrogant and never cared about the feelings of others. In Xing Hun's eyes, other than Dong Huang Tai and Yueshan, everyone else in the school of Yinyang had to obey him. If possible, he sincerely hoped that Yueshan would obey him. However, their abilities were on the same level, and Xing Hun did not have the right to order Yueshan around. Has Your Excellency Dong Huang agreed to Lord Xing Hun's plan? Young Master Ming asked calmly. If not, then forgive me for not being able to accept this matter. Even you want to defy me? Xing Hun's eyes turned cold as he said unkindly, Young Master Ming, remember this clearly. Your current superior is me. There is no need to trouble Your Excellency Dong Huang with such a small matter. For the future of the school of Yinyang, you have to agree even if you don't want to. Xing Hun's tone was resolute, and it seemed like there was no room for negotiation. You've gone too far. When young Master Ming heard this, her delicate face was filled with unconcealable anger. Although Xing Hun was indeed her superior, and the guardian of the school of Yinyang had a higher status than the elders of the five spirit Xiantong, young Master Ming was an elder of the Wood tribe. Although she had a high status, her status and abilities were not as high as Xing Hun's. This matter is decided. When the plan is implemented, I will send someone to inform you. Xing Hun looked coldly at the indignant young Master Ming and brushed past her. His expressionless face did not move. Xing Hun's cold face did not even have a trace of apology, much less guilt. To him all of this was natural. Natural selection was the survival of the fittest. Because Xing Hun was more powerful than young Master Ming, he could decide her future and even her life. Therefore, Xing Hun completely disregarded young Master Ming's feelings. So what if she felt wronged and resisted? There were too many unfair things in this world. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being useless. Chapter 1845. Lord Xing Hun, please wait. A crisp immortal voice came out of young Master Ming's mouth, stopping the star souls that were about to leave. Is there anything else? Turning his head to glance at young Master Ming, Xing Hun said in a tone that said there was no room for discussion. If you want to persuade me to give up, you should give up now. No. Young Master Ming felt a chill in her heart, but she still replied coldly. She asked curiously, why don't you look for Great Sea Ming for this? Compared to me, she should be more loyal to Lord Xing Hun. After hearing young Master Ming's words, Xing Hun's chest, which was pierced by Dustless, started to hurt again. If it was possible, he even wanted Moon Goddess to seduce Dustless. It would be best if both of them perished together. After all, Moon Goddess was his enemy in the Yinyang school. But the problem was that Xing Hun did not have the right to do so. Great Sea Ming was probably drifting away from him, and he could still trust young Master Ming. But Xing Hun glanced at young Master Ming, whose face was covered by a veil. He was sure that although she did not show it, she hated him very much. Forget it, it doesn't matter. Xing Hun thought about it and felt relieved. Anyone would be annoyed if this happened to them. He did not care about young Master Ming's disgust as long as he could complete the mission. Another wave comes before the first one is over. After a while, Xing Hun left, leaving behind a dejected young Master Ming. Zichen alone was enough to give her a headache. Now there was Dustless, who she had to seduce. Young Master Ming suddenly realized that anyone with the word Qin in their name was not a good person. Night fell and the sky turned cold. Is this the Yellowstone Heavenly Book? Wu Chen excitedly flipped through the bamboo slip in his hand. It was filled with densely packed characters. Although he couldn't understand a single one of them, his heart was extremely high. The corners of his mouth carried an ecstatic smile. Before coming to this world, the system consciousness Linger had given him a mission to collect the Yellowstone Heavenly Book and Songlong's 7 mansions. Now that the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was in his hands, Chunan Gong sent someone to deliver it 2 hours ago. Next up is bang. At this moment, there was an unusual explosion in front of Dustless's door, and he could also hear the sound of violent coughing. Frowning, Dustless walked out. Due to Dustless's special status, he was different from the other disciples of the Confucian school. Zhang Liang had specially arranged a separate room for Dustless. Although Tianming and Xiaoyu had made such a request, Zhang Liang had mercilessly rejected them. It's you? Sherlon. Lying on the ground was a delicate young girl dressed in night clothes. Her face was slightly pale, and the corners of her mouth were stained with purplish blood. What Dustless was most concerned about was the faintly discernible black aura that appeared between Sherlan's eyebrows. "You're poisoned?" Dustless asked without hesitation when he recalled that Duanmu Rong was in the same state last time. Sherlan opened her eyes and stared at Dustless, who was close at hand. When he saw the worried look on her face, he did not know why, but a strange warmth flowed through his heart. It was warm and very comfortable. Ever since her brother had been arrested, she had never felt this way. "Did you sneak into the mirage alone?" Dustless stared at Sherlan in surprise. Sherlan still did not speak, but she nodded slightly. There was no doubt that Dustless had guessed correctly this time. "I told you before that it's very dangerous up there. Your poisoning should have something to do with Yun Zhongjuan, right? Although that guy is responsible for refining the elixir of immortality for Ying Zheng, he's actually very good at refining poisons." Without further ado, Dustless quickly dragged Sherlan away. Their destination was the base of the Mo family in Mulberry Sea City. Poisoning was quite tricky and Dustless could do nothing about it. To detoxify the poison, he first had to help the poisoned person suppress the toxicity, which required some special pills or herbs. Dustless was completely clueless about this. Later he used internal force to help it force out the venom. True Qi was the most suitable, but unfortunately, Wu Qin didn't understand True Qi. Although chakra or Ryatsu could also be used, these two forces were too violent. If he didn't handle it well, the rock orchid would explode. However, Duanmu Rong was very good at it. She should be able to cure Sherlan easily. It was not a big problem. "By the way, there's also the 100-herb pill that Duanmu Rong gave me last time." With his eyes lit up, Dustless suddenly took out a jade bottle from his arms, and then fed a few black pills to Sherlan. As for whether it was useful or not, Dustless didn't know. Bai Chao Dan was most effective before poisoning. Although it was still effective after poisoning, the efficacy was greatly reduced. Dustless was not sure whether it could resist the poison. "Zichen, thank you." About a few minutes later, Sherlan spoke. Her eyes were full of crystal light, and her face was full of gratitude. If it weren't for Dustless's help, maybe the people in front of her at this moment would be the black and white impermanence. "It's just temporarily suppressed." His right eye twisted and changed. The blue and white Tensigan was exposed to the air, and the changes in Sherlan's bones and meridians were visible to Dustless. Although the poison was not completely removed, it had been steadily suppressed and stopped eroding Sherlan's body. However, this was enough. Dustless could send Sherlan to Duanmu Rong for treatment before she died of the poison. Chapter 1846. In the depths of the wilderness deep in the mountains and forests, the Mo family was temporarily hiding in this place. Since the Qin army stationed a large number of troops in Mulberry Sea City, the Mo family had to hide in the wilderness. The environment was too remote, but they were happy to be safe. Knock, knock. Duanmu Rong, who had fallen asleep, suddenly opened her eyes when she heard the knock on the door. Under the faint moonlight, she could clearly see the blurry figure outside the door. "It's the middle of the night." Duanmu Rong frowned and narrowed her eyes. Out of caution, she was secretly on her guard. Crick. After the door was gently pushed open, Dustless's apologetic face appeared. He said embarrassedly, "Miss Duanmu, I'm really sorry for visiting so late at night, but I'd like to trouble you to take a look at this lady. Anyone who barged into a lady's room in the dark of the night would misunderstand." "It's okay. Come in for the time being." Duanmu Rong glanced at the girl in Dustless's arms and nodded slightly. The tiredness in her eyes was gone. She, who was known as the medical sage, could tell at a glance that Sherlan was poisoned. "You've done well to suppress the poison in her body." After carefully feeling Sherlan's pulse, Duanmu Rong praised, "This poison is quite strange. I've never seen it before." "Miss Duanmu, you must be joking. It's all thanks to your 100-herb pill." Dustless shook his head and then asked, "If I'm not wrong, this is the poison of Yun Zhongjuan of the Yinyang family." Yun Zhongjuan? Hearing this, Duanmu Rong's eyes flashed with a strange light. She seemed to have heard of Yun Zhongjuan's name. The Yun Zhongjuan who is responsible for refining elixirs for King Ying Zheng of Qin? Yes, it's him. He's also the owner of the Mirage. Dustless nodded and said. Looking at the pale Sherlan, he guessed that she had rashly entered the Mirage because she was worried about her brother. Although Sherlan's actions were overly reckless thinking about it, it was also human nature. Dustless could also understand. Their only family member had been taken away by Yun Zhongjuan, and her life was in danger. Anyone would be anxious and worried. Moreover, Yun Zhongjuan was extremely vicious. He even experimented on some people in the mirage. Detoxifying the poison is not a problem, but the spiritual herbs required are really rare. After taking her pulse in detail, Duanmu Rong felt a headache coming on. If it was an ordinary poison it would be fine, but the problem was that Yun Zhongjuan was the culprit. This guy refined all kinds of poisons and elixirs, and his formulas were extremely rare, let alone detoxifying them. Tell me about it. Hearing this, Dustless smiled indifferently. In fact, there were many different kinds of elixirs in one place, the Mirage. In order to let Yun Zhongjuan concoct the elixir of immortality, Ying Zheng had harvested a large amount of medicinal herbs and placed them in the Mirage. I do have other spiritual herbs in stock, but I'm missing one thing. Duanmu Rong glanced at Dustless and sighed. The emerald blood jade leaf flower is a legendary spiritual medicine that can bring the dead back to life. It's priceless. I see. Hearing this, Dustless was not worried at all. Instead, he was full of confidence and raised a finger. At most one day. Before sunset tomorrow, I will definitely bring the jasper blood jade leaf flower over. Are you comforting me? Duanmu Rong questioned with a suspicious look. If it were other spiritual herbs it might be difficult, but this jasper blood jade leaf flower is ready-made. Dustless smiled mysteriously. He had heard of the jasper blood jade leaf flower before. Moreover, the Grandmaster of the Confucian school, Sun Zi, had the jasper blood jade leaf flower, and it was the best one, the 9 Springs jasper blood jade leaf flower. When he returned to the Sage Manor, it was already the next morning. When Dustless planned to visit Sun Zi, he did not expect this robust old man to take the initiative to come to him in a hurry with an extremely strange flattering expression. Little friend Zichen, I heard that you have obtained a supreme treasure, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Can you lend it to me for a look? There was no such thing as a wall that did not have a crack. Although Chu Nangong had delivered it in the dead of night, a large number of people had their eyes on the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. During this period, Dustless had secretly killed many people. Welcome, Sun Zi. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Seeing this old man looking at him with eager eyes, Dustless felt helpless. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was too important to him. Just as he was about to refuse, Dustless swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. This is not bad. I also want to see what exactly is inside that incomparably wondrous book. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was an ancient text. Dustless felt pressured to read it. Only a sage like Sun Zi, who knew about the past and present, could understand the principles behind it. No problem, but I have a condition. Dustless smiled and agreed straightforwardly. There is no harm in saying it. Sun Zi patted his chest when he heard this, looking as if he had something to say. I have a friend who is seriously injured and needs the jasper blood jade leaf flower, so... Dustless stopped and looked at Sun Zi, who seemed to be in a dilemma. His meaning was self-evident. How does this brat know that I have the jasper blood jade leaf flower? Sun Zi was puzzled. After calculating the gains and losses, he finally gritted his teeth and said, Little friend Zichen's friend is my friend. Coincidentally, I have a stock of the jasper blood jade leaf flower. I will hand it over to you later. But this Yellowstone Heavenly Book, take it. Sun Zi nodded and agreed. Wu Qin directly threw the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to him. However, after Senior Sun Zi has studied the great Tao in it, you must tell me the full text without changing anything. Moreover, you must return the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to me in the end. Of course. Sun Zi hurriedly promised. This was not a big problem. Although it was painful to lose the jasper blood jade leaf flower, its value was not worth mentioning compared to the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Although the jasper blood jade leaf flower was rare in the world, there was more than one stock. On the contrary, there was only one Yellowstone Heavenly Book in the world. Chapter 1847. Dustless had expected that Sun Zi would agree to his terms. Although he only agreed to let him use it for reference and would return it in the future, it was already a great honor. Looking at the history of hundreds and thousands of years, how many people had seen this peerless book? Seeing Sun Zi's satisfied expression, Dustless chatted with him for a while. Little friend Zichen, since you're able to defeat Yinyang School's young arbiter Ming and Luonet's slave of 6 swords, your strength makes me feel ashamed. Putting away the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, Sun Zi stroked his beard emotionally. You're too polite. Dustless waved his hand and said humbly, I was just lucky. Lucky? Sun Zi rolled his eyes and chuckled silently. Defeating Slave of Six Swords might be luck, but Yinyang School's young Master Ming was definitely not easy to deal with. On that day, Master Sun had once secretly observed the battle between Wu Qin, Li Si, and the others. Truthfully speaking, he felt extremely comfortable in his heart when he saw Li Si's face that was filled with rage from embarrassment yet just happened to be unable to flare up. Zichen, you must pay attention to Li Si. Sun Zi reminded him out of kindness. The current Li Si is no longer the Li Si who studied under me. In his heart there is only the Qin dynasty. After becoming the prime minister of the Qin dynasty, Li Si was afraid that Han Fei would threaten his position and was jealous of his talent. Therefore he framed Han Fei with false accusations, which led to Han Fei's death in prison. It was worth mentioning that Han Fei was Li Si's classmate. Of course I know that. Dustless nodded. Li Si was indeed talented, but he was too narrow-minded and cared too much about his position. Creak. The half-closed door was gently pushed open and a boy servant walked in respectfully with a brocade box. Zichen, this is the jasper blood jade leaf flower. Sun Zi opened the brocade box and instantly revealed a plant that emitted spiritual energy. Seeing the slightly absent-minded Dustless, Sun Zi said proudly, to be honest, this jasper blood jade leaf flower, to be more precise, should be called 9 Springs jasper blood jade leaf flower. Its medicinal effects are even stronger. Thank you, Teacher Sun. Dustless accepted the brocade box and thanked him. I'm still in a hurry to save that friend. I'll visit you another day to thank you. In the forested mountains outside Mulberry Sea City, Dustless hummed a little tune as he walked forward. He seemed to be in a pretty good mood as he had obtained the 9 Springs blood jade leaf flower effortlessly. Furthermore, Sun Zi had even promised to tell him the contents of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. This was not a loss. This brat is obviously a high-ranking official. Don't let him escape. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the ground in front of him suddenly trembled on a large scale, and he could also hear the sound of fighting. Could it be that someone discovered the Mo family's hidden stronghold? Dustless raised his eyebrows and immediately sped up. This road just so happened to lead to the Mo family. That pretty boy looks a little familiar. A group of fierce-looking mountain bandits were surrounding a handsome young master. This young master's expression was a little nervous, and even the sharp-eyed Dustless could see the cold sweat on his forehead. There were a few corpses around and they were probably this young master's guards. Could it be him? After carefully examining this young man for a moment, Dustless suddenly felt that this young man was a little familiar, and he was almost exactly the same as a person in his memory. After thinking about the time, he was immediately sure that it was him. Young Master Fusu? After lowering his head in silence for a moment, Dustless unexpectedly revealed this person's identity. In the original work, young Master Fusu was once surrounded by a group of mountain bandits, and the people who saved him were Sun Zi and Tianming. But now Dustless had waited for it. If you want to complain, you can complain that you are blocking the way. Seeing this group of fierce-looking mountain bandits, Dustless's body flashed, and he turned into a stream of light and flew out. In an instant, a large shining sword appeared in his hand. Like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep, he started a crushing massacre. Puchi, puchi, puchi. Every time he raised his blade, a head would fall to the ground. In just a few minutes, hundreds of bandits were slaughtered. Many of the bandits who escaped the net fled in all directions like birds startled by the twang of a bow when they saw Dustless's terrifying strength. Thank you, benefactor, for saving us. Seeing Dustless's powerful strength, Fusu, who was stunned for a moment, thanked him emotionally. Benefactor, what is your name? Where do you live? I will definitely visit you to thank you in the future. There is no need to go through so much trouble. These mountain bandits were just blocking my way, so I just took care of them. Dustless only glanced at Dustless before leaving him with his back. Even without Fusu, these mountain bandits would probably come out to rob Dustless. What a strange person. Fusu's thick black eyebrows frowned together. Although Dustless did not have a surface identity, but he had an impression of the scholarly disciple's clothes. Boom, boom, boom. After the massacre, the quiet sky started raging again. A large group of fire cavalry from the state of Qin swarmed over, and the general leading the way was Great General Meng Tian. Young master, please forgive me for being late. Seeing that Fusu was safe, Meng Tian heaved a sigh of relief. If anything happened to Fusu, the head on his neck would also be removed. You are guilty. To think that there are so many bandits in the middle of the wilderness in broad daylight. Your position as the great general is too secure. Seeing Meng Tian kneel, Fusu did not give him a good face and loudly reprimanded, "If not for that benefactor, I would have been cut into pieces by those mountain bandits. I am guilty, I deserve to die." Hearing this, Meng Tian broke out in cold sweat. He secretly glanced at the drifting figure in front of him, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "Young master, I know that guy. He is Zi Chen from the Confucian school." Chapter 1848. He really is from the Confucian school. Hearing this, Fusu suddenly understood and said emotionally, "I'll go to the Confucian school soon. His name is Zi." "Wait." Fusu's eyes shone brightly as he suddenly asked, "I heard that the Confucian school disciple who took the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from Li Si is also called Zi Chen." "Yes, young master." Meng Tian did not deny it. She then looked at the corpses on the ground and said with certainty, "A young master who is so strong that it's unreliable. There's probably only that Zi Chen in the Confucian school. No wonder he could embarrass Li Si. He is indeed a genius. On the surface, that Zi Chen is definitely not more than 20 years old. Such a genius should be used by the empire." Fusu's eyes shone brightly, giving off a brilliant light. "Young master, that doesn't seem possible." Meng Tian laughed bitterly and explained the grudge between little Saint Zhuang Li Si and Dustless. How can he blame others for falling into his trap? After listening to Meng Tian's narration, Fusu did not sympathize with Li Si. Instead, he sneered, "If he wasn't overconfident, he wouldn't have failed. Li Si is the one who looks down on others, how can he be willing to accept others?" "That's true." Hearing Fusu's cold voice, Meng Tian could only shut her mouth. If she spoke for Li Si now, she might be in trouble too. Shanghai's Little Saint Manor is the holy land of all scholars. If I have time, I have to pay my respects. Fusu's eyes were filled with longing. "But, young master," seeing Fusu's expression, Meng Tian carefully said, "Young master, forgive me for being blunt. Last time, Lord Li had a big conflict with the Confucian school. Although he was fine in the end, I suggest—" "Enough, I know what you want to say. Do you think that those scholars will assassinate me?" Fusu snorted and waved his hand calmly. "I appreciate General Meng's good intentions, but I have an expert helping me this time." "It's fine." "Expert." Hearing this, Meng Tian looked at Fusu in surprise. Then she decisively shut her mouth. Fusu was furious, so it was better to talk less. The Confucian school's stronghold. "Miss Duanmu, I've brought the item." Dustless rushed into Duanmu Rong's room without stopping. The first thing he saw was Duanmu Rong carefully taking care of Shirlan on the bed. He could even smell the bitter smell of medicine. "So fast?" Duanmu Rong looked at Dustless in astonishment. Dustless had only disappeared for a few hours, and he had already brought back the legendary elixir, the Jade Blood Jade Leaf Flower. Duanmu Rong didn't dare to praise his speed. "Like I said before, I have stock." Dustless handed the viridescent Blood Jade Leaf Flower to Duanmu Rong before pouring himself a cup of tea. He then looked out the window and asked, "Speaking of which, where are the Snow Maidens and Master Ban? They don't seem to be here." Upon hearing this, Duanmu Rong suddenly pulled Dustless over. Seeing that there was no one around, she whispered, "I don't know the exact situation either. Everyone was called over by Zi Fang." "Ovary? You mean Zhang Liang?" Dustless was even more confused. He asked, "When did he come?" "I remember that he said that as the third master of the Confucian family, Zhang Liang would do his best to avoid suspicion and reduce the number of meetings with the school of Mo. Why did he suddenly come? Did something big happen?" In Dustless's heart, Zi Fang or Zhang Liang was also not a good person. Of course, he wasn't a bad person, but he also had designs on the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. Therefore, whether Zhang Liang was good or bad, it didn't matter to Dustless. In this world, anyone who had designs on the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon was Dustless's enemy. There was no distinction between good and bad. Anyone related to the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon would fight to the death. Was that simple? What did he want from the school of Mo? Dustless asked calmly as he put down the teacup in his hand. "I don't know the details." After glancing at Dustless, Duanmu Rong then glanced at the secluded room in the distance and said, "It seems that everyone is discussing some secret plan. I guess it's to deal with the Qin state." "Deal with the Qin state?" "Miss Duanmu, although you look strong on the surface, sometimes you are too naive." Dustless shook his head slightly and sighed. "What do you mean?" Duanmu Rong frowned and looked at Dustless. With some dissatisfaction and anger, she said, "Do you think they are hiding something from me?" I don't know if they are hiding something from you, but... Dustless's eyes narrowed slightly as he analyzed wisely. They must have something they don't want you to know. If they are really discussing how to deal with the Qin state, is there a need to hide it from you? Moreover, you are one of the commanders of the school of Mo. They deliberately excluded you from this circle. Isn't it to hide it from you? Dustless's eyes were silent as he asked calmly. Looking at Duanmu Rong, whose cheeks were a little stiff, he guessed in his heart, maybe I have implicated her. Everyone in the school of Mo knew that Duanmu Rong and Dustless had an extraordinary relationship. Maybe they just wanted to hide it from Dustless, so they avoided Duanmu Rong. However, Zhang Liang, you are too self-righteous. What in the world can be hidden from me? Especially when you're doing it right under my nose. How ignorant. Dustless suddenly sneered, and then his left eye changed rapidly, and a purple reincarnation Sharingan appeared. Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison. Dustless's shadow was not only powerful in attack, but also in spying. No one could find it. Chapter 1849. There is no doubt that the power of Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison, is unparalleled in the world. Whether it is a pure attack or other aspects, it is an unparalleled existence. For example, in the current investigation, only people who have Rinnegan and 6 paths of immortality can realize the existence of Dustless's shadow. It is completely naked cheating. Even if he punched Zhang Liang, no one will notice. Maybe this kid will think that it was a ghost who punched him. You smile so slyly. Seeing Dustless's evil smile as if he found a fun toy, Duanmu Rong felt uncomfortable. Slyly? Maybe. But it doesn't matter. It is normal to use special means in special times. Dustless replied disapprovingly. Perhaps he is used to being thick-skinned, he doesn't feel that he is too much. Suit yourself. You can go out for a while. I'm going to treat this little girl. Duanmu Rong ordered him to leave and immediately pushed Wu Qin out without any trace of politeness. Blood Jade Leaf Flower. 9 Spring Blood Jade Leaf Flower. After opening the brocade box, Duanmu Rong was surprised to find that this Blood Jade Leaf Flower has 9 leaves. Its efficacy is several times that of ordinary Blood Jade Leaf Flower. Staring at the sleeping girl, she said, "It seems that your position in Dustless's heart is not comparable to ordinary people." Then Duanmu Rong began to prepare the necessary medicine to treat Shirlan. As for Dustless, he was silently peeping. "I want to see what tricks you are going to play." With a sneer, Dustless controlled the shadow to approach the room where Zhang Liang and the people of Mo family were talking. "Everyone, what do you think of my plan?" In the room with a slightly depressed atmosphere, Zhang Liang looked at the people of Mo family seriously. Their expressions were a little heavy, and their eyes were flickering. It seems that they are making a very difficult decision. Zhang Liang's plan is to cooperate with Wei Zhuang's countercurrent sand. "Everyone, I don't need to say the current situation. I think you all know that we have reached the edge of the cliff. The power of Qin Kingdom is far beyond our imagination. If we are not careful, we may be crushed." Zhang Liang continued to persuade them. "Please don't forget that although Wei Zhuang used to be on the opposite side of the Mo family, he is also a Korean. Like me, he is a noble in Korea. Wei Zhuang's close friend Han Fei was killed by Li Si. There is also a grudge between them. No wonder this kid has a secret meeting behind my back." Through the news from the shadow, Wu Qin sneered and scoffed at Zhang Liang's plan. No wonder he wanted to hide it from him. As everyone knows, Dustless and Wei Zhuang had a grudge against Wei Zhuang. Several of Quicksand's experts were all killed by Dustless. Zhang Liang was probably afraid that Wu Qin would strongly object if he knew about it. But Wei Zhuang is related to Juzi's death. Gao Jinli took a step forward. He didn't like Wei Zhuang and said coldly, "If it weren't for Wei Zhuang and Juyu Qianye, our mechanical city wouldn't have been breached in just one day. A lot of Mo family disciples died. This is all Wei Zhuang's masterpiece. He is fully responsible." "That's reasonable." Old Man Ban, Teacher Su, and the Snow Maiden nodded in agreement. "Everyone, I know what the death of Mo family's Juzi means to you all." Zhang Liang smiled slightly. His calm demeanor seemed to indicate that he had anticipated what the Mo family would say. He analyzed, "But don't forget that it was Wu Qin's one-sided statement to say that the giant was killed by the Qin soldiers. Until now, there is no conclusive evidence to point out that the Qin soldiers or Wei Zhuang killed the Mo family's giant. Do you think it is possible?" Zhang Liang's eyes shone with shrewdness. He said wisely, "Someone deliberately killed Mo family's Juzi and framed Wei Zhuang and the Qin soldiers. This Zhang Liang? Letting him live is indeed a disaster. Wu Qin, who was eavesdropping, couldn't help but be stunned. He had long heard that Zhang Liang was extraordinarily intelligent. Now that he had seen it, he really lived up to his reputation. The death of the Mo family's great son was actually not a soldier of the Qin state or Wei Zhuang. The main culprit of all this was actually Dustless. Mr. Zhang Liang, your words seem to point to Senior Dustless. Gunya frowned as he looked at Zhang Liang. Even though he did not explain in detail, most of the people in the Mo family's mechanical city had been attacked and almost all of them had been injured. Even those who had not been injured had been killed by Qi Lian's 1,000 Knights of Doves. Other than Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha, the Qin soldiers and Dustless were still active. If Zhang Liang's guess was correct and the culprit was not Lu Sha or the Qin soldiers, then there was only one person left: Dustless. Zifeng, although the Mo family is grateful that you saved us, I hope that you won't speak carelessly. Master Ban suddenly said unhappily, if it wasn't for Dustless, the Mo family would have been destroyed. Everyone knows this. That's right. Dustless has no reason to harm us. The honest Big Hammer chimed in. On the other hand, Gao Jinli was silent. He suddenly thought of something and had some doubts about Wu Chen. However, when he saw that everyone believed in Wu Chen's appearance and that he didn't have any evidence, he tactfully shut his mouth in the end. A fox will eventually reveal its tail. Gao Jinli's expression didn't change, but he had made up his mind to observe Dustless closely. After thinking about it carefully, Gao Jinli suddenly realized that some things were too coincidental. When Wu Chen appeared, a series of unlucky things started to happen to the Mo family. No matter if it was a coincidence or if there was a hidden agenda, it was worth paying attention to. Moreover, Gao Jinli also understood that what Zhang Liang said was an out-and-out fact. The death of the Mo clan's great son was completely fabricated by Wu Chen alone. Whether or not there were other shady scenes, only God knew. Chapter 1850. That D*MN Zhang Liang. He's not easy to deal with. Doesn't he know that the smarter he is, the faster he dies? He doesn't have any self-awareness at all. Dustless stared at Zhang Liang. His vigilance against him increased exponentially. Although Zhang Liang's strength was average, his intelligence was shockingly high. No wonder he had helped Liu Bang defeat Xiang Yu and establish the Han dynasty. It was undeniable that he had some skills. However, no matter what he shouldn't have done, he shouldn't have set his sights on the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. In this way he'd become Wu Chen's enemy as well. Under that terrifying strength, what could a so-called scheme count as? Brat, look at how excited you are. Let me teach you a lesson first so that you can soothe your mouth. Dustless looked at the eloquent Zhang Liang and could not help but smirk. He controlled the shadow to sneak up beside Zhang Liang. Bang! At that moment, Zhang Liang was ambushed like never before. He fell flat on his back and was caught off guard. Who ambushed me? Zhang Liang's face darkened as he roared angrily. Ambush? Hearing this, the Mo family members were speechless. In their eyes, no one had seen anyone ambush Zhang Liang. Instead, he had fallen to the ground for no reason. Zifeng, are you feeling unwell? You fell on your own. No one ambushed you. You know the Mo family's teachings. Ambushing is not something we would do. Old Man Ban looked at the embarrassed Zhang Liang strangely. He did not understand what this guy was trying to do. He had fallen on his own, but he was blaming others for ambushing him. Was he crazy? I didn't see anyone ambush him either. Gunya nodded. He was also puzzled. You guys too? Zhang Liang looked at the Mo family members. Everyone nodded in unison. None of them had seen anyone ambush Zhang Liang. They had not even seen anyone make a move. This is really F***ket up. Hearing this, Zhang Liang cursed in his heart. He had never believed in ghosts, but now he could not help but be suspicious. Forget it. Zhang Liang remembered that he still had something important to talk about, so he could only make light of the small matter. He rubbed his sore buttocks and saw a bench on the left. Zhang Liang walked over and sat down. Everyone, what are your plans? Are you going to? Bang. Unexpectedly, before Zhang Liang could sit down, the bench automatically moved away. Plop. Zhang Liang's but missed and his body fell to the ground. After his face twitched, it became even more unsightly. Don't tell me this is an accident. After being played twice in a row, Zhang Liang finally could no longer maintain his calm. He said coldly, everyone from the Mo family, if you don't want to form an alliance, you can just say so. Why must you continuously humiliate me? Serves you right for daring to expose me to the end. Continue to wait for my revenge. Dustless, who was hiding in the dark, had an unconcealable smile on his face. Zhang Liang's 2 embarrassing moments were naturally caused by him. Who asked this guy to point the spearhead of Yan Dan's death at him? A moving chair? Is it Master Ban's latest creation? Master Fan of the Xiang clan of the Chu kingdom exclaimed, "The Mo family is indeed a famous family in the world. They can even make such a strange thing." Perhaps others did not see it just now, but Master Fan saw it very clearly. The moment Zhang Liang sat down, the bench seemed to have grown legs and moved away by itself. This has nothing to do with me." Seeing everyone looking at him strangely, Master Ban hurriedly explained, "How can an old man like me make such a thing? Do you think I have nothing better to do? I don't have so much time." When he found that everyone was looking at him suspiciously, Master Ban wanted to cry but had no tears. He said that he had done nothing. "Enough. I'll just stand," Zhang Liang said in a cold tone with a gloomy face. Being kicked by someone could be treated as the work of a ghost or an illusion. However, being tricked by someone else again, anyone would feel depressed. She was kicked and fell, and that was all she needed to do. What was worse was that he did not even know who the murderer was. Zhang Liang suddenly felt that he was a tragedy. "In order to prove my innocence, I agree with the Mo family and Wei Zhuang." Originally, Master Ban had resisted the idea of forming an alliance with Wei Zhuang, but now, in order to explain himself to Qin Bai, Master Ban was ready to risk everything. "I also agree." Gao Jianli stood on Master Ban's side, unexpectedly choosing to form an alliance with Wei Zhuang. As for Snow Lady, she did not say much. Everyone knew about her relationship with Gao Jianli, so she decisively supported Gao Jianli. "Sigh, in that case I can only go with the flow." With a sigh, Dao Ji also decisively stood next to Master Ban. Obviously, he also agreed to form an alliance with Wei Zhuang's quicksand. Now, only Big Iron Hammer and Teacher Su were left. Even if they refused, it would be useless. The votes were 4-2, so forming an alliance with Wei Zhuang's quicksand was a done deal. "Mo family, you will regret this." Seeing this, Dustless, who was watching in the dark, withdrew his shadow. The alliance between Wei Zhuang and the Mo family was actually expected. The only surprise was that they did not expect the alliance to happen so early. In the original work, even though the Mo family and Quicksand had countless grievances, after Zhang Liang's matchmaking, in the end, the two sides colluded, and Quicksand went from an enemy to an ally. This was not a coincidence. It was inevitable. If the Mo family continued to be isolated, even with the help of Confucianism and Taoism, it was destined that they would not be able to survive alone. Cooperation was going with the flow. Chapter 1851. Zhang Liang, Gao Jianli, Wei Zhuang. I can't believe such a weird combination is actually together. Through the observation of the shadow, Dustless could clearly see the relationship between the three of them. Wei Zhuang and Zhang Liang were fine since they had been colluding with each other for a long time, so Dustless was not surprised. On the other hand, Gao Jianli's behavior made Dustless feel rather strange. Gao Jianli seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. "I'll find a suitable opportunity to kill all of you." Dustless's expression gradually turned cold, and his eyes glowed with a demonic bloodlust. He was not a kind person to begin with, and he had always been clear about his grudges. He would definitely kill anyone who had a grudge against him. Especially since Zhang Liang and Wei Zhuang were scheming against the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. How could Dustless let them go? As for Gao Jianli, it seemed like he wanted to investigate the death of the Mo family's magnate. Since their relationship was so deep, Dustless could only send Gao Jianli to heaven to meet the Mo family's magnate. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. On this day, many guests came to the Mo family's stronghold, and Dustless happened to be there as well. In the past few days, Dustless often returned to the Mo family's stronghold. With his speed, it was only a matter of seconds. As long as he left the Flying Thunder God Sorcerer on Duanmu Rong, he could be summoned at any time. Wei Zhuang's quicksand? This time, no one stopped the people who rashly barged into the Mo family's stronghold because the leader was Zhang Liang. Behind him were Wei Zhuang and the other members of Quicksand. Qi Lian, Bai Feng, and the rest were all there, as well as the eerie Black Qilin. "Mr. Zhang Liang, please invite Quicksand over." At this moment, Dustless was the first to speak. He stared at Zhang Liang and said with a smile, "Could it be that you want to take my head?" Dustless's sudden words made the atmosphere very awkward. I'm not here to fight with you. After a moment of silence, Quicksand's boss Wei Zhuang replied calmly. It was worth mentioning that after Wei Zhuang's demon sword, Shark Tooth, had been destroyed by Dustless during the battle at the Mo family's mechanical city, Wei Zhuang had stolen Gania's script. Now he was using a decent-looking wooden sword. You have to be able to defeat me first. Dustless disdainfully curled his lips. He could not intervene in the matters between the Mo family and the Quicksand. After all, he was just an outsider, not a disciple of the Mo family. Even if the Mo family suddenly decided to join the Qin Empire, Dustless had no right to intervene. Ha! A seductive laugh came from Qilian's mouth. She smiled sweetly and asked, Mr. Dustless, you destroyed Lord Wei Zhuang's shark tooth last time. Don't you plan to compensate for it? Compensation? Dustless frowned slightly and looked at Qilian. Then he said lazily, I'm all alone in this world. Firstly, I have no money. Secondly, I have no power. I'm a pauper. If you want me to compensate, you can only take my life. However, when you come to take my life, I won't just sit there and wait for it. Dustless added. Princess Red Lotus, Qilian, Brother Dustless, from now on, we're all on the same side. There's no need to be so calculative. Leave the matter of Wei Zhuang's sword to me. Zhang Liang saw that there was a strong smell of gunpowder in the air and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. If this continued, both sides might start killing each other again. You're a smiling tiger. You're the one who caused all of this. Now you dare to pretend to be innocent. Indeed, scholars are the scariest when they're shameless. Seeing Zhang Liang's sad and regretful appearance, Dustless felt a strong sense of disgust for him. He couldn't help but ridicule him in his heart. Zhang Liang, this guy. You should just go and be a movie king. If you didn't collude with Wei Zhuang, how could you have ended up in this situation? Our Quicksand has no objection to Zifang's words. I'm just afraid that someone will really get angry. Qilian gently pursed her rose petal-like red lips. Her tone was very enchanting. She was like a fairy, giggling continuously. However, her eyes were filled with a cold light. There are still many classes in the Sage Manor this afternoon. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. Dustless glanced at the members of Quicksand one by one. Then he glanced at Zhang Liang, Gao Jianli and the others. Then he disappeared into the wilderness alone. Master Ban, why did you hide the news of your alliance with Quicksand from me? Duanmu Rong's sullen tone spread. The members of the Mo family were slightly embarrassed. Master Ban, who was questioned by Duanmu Rong, had a face full of misfortune. Why didn't you ask so many people? Are you making things difficult for an old man like me? Old man Ban smiled bitterly in his heart. Staring at Duanmu Rong, he could only reluctantly explain, Miss Rong has been busy treating that little girl recently. We hid it from you to prevent you from being distracted. That's right. Big Hammer and the others immediately scrambled to nod, fearing that Duanmu Rong would catch them red-handed. Is that so? Then shouldn't I thank everyone? Duanmu Rong's cold gaze swept over the commanders of the Mo family. She also understood the current predicament of the Mo family. To a certain extent, she could understand the actions of Old Man Ban and the others, but they forgot the consequences of doing so. It may be a good thing to temporarily advance and retreat with Quicksand, but have you ever thought that we may lose another important ally? The Mo family abandoned Dustless and chose Quicksand. Hearing this, the members of the Mo family suddenly fell silent. The fish is what I want. The bear's paw is also what I want. I can't have both, only one. Zhang Liang smiled faintly and replied with a classic Confucian answer. This was normal. Wanting to have a foot in two boats was tantamount to a dream. Abandoning one of them was inevitable. Chapter 1852. Mr. Zhang Liang, forgive me for being blunt, but I don't think your words are appropriate. Duanmu Rong looked at Zhang Liang calmly. She had some understanding of the origin of this sentence, but Zhang Liang had completely distorted its meaning. This paragraph came from Mencius. The general meaning of the original text was that justice was more important than life, and advocated sacrificing one's life for righteousness. Mencius was kind by nature and believed that everyone has a heart of shame and evil. People should maintain their kind nature and strengthen their daily cultivation and education. They should not do anything that goes against etiquette. In short, the person who was abandoned should be the synonym of evil. Could it be that in Mr. Zhang Liang's eyes, Dustless is more evil than Wei Zhuang? So we should abandon Dustless and choose Wei Zhuang? In the face of Duanmu Rong's questioning, Zhang Liang just frowned and did not speak. In fact, in Zhang Liang's eyes, Wei Zhuang was indeed more trustworthy than Dustless. What he said just now was his true thoughts. Dustless's identity and origin were unknown. It was impossible to tell whether he was a friend or foe. It was only natural that he should be abandoned. At least Zhang Liang knew Wei Zhuang's background, while Dustless seemed to be hiding in a fog. It was difficult to see his true position. Miss Duanmu, there's no need for you to care about such things. I'm not deliberately targeting anyone. The reason why I recommended Lu Sha to everyone was to unite and deal with the state of Qin. As for being hostile to Wu Qin, that's even more groundless. Zhang Liang argued wittily. Even if he was hostile to Dustless, he would not say it out loud. Groundless may not be without reason. Leaving such a sentence, Duanmu Rong left with an ugly expression. Although she knew that the alliance between the Mo family and Quicksand was forced by the terrible situation, it was a sudden alliance. Even Duanmu Rong was somewhat against it, let alone Dustless. After all, in the Battle of Mechanical City, a large number of disciples of the Mo family died because of Wei Zhuang. At this moment, in another direction, above the endless sea, the gigantic mirage was moving slowly. It was similar to a sea test, but it was not a real voyage. It was just testing the performance of the mirage. This ship is ridiculously big. I clearly killed that old man Gong Shuqiu. How can this mirage still be activated? I remember that I even destroyed his heart. In a certain elegant room, Dustless was lazily admiring the cherry blossoms in the courtyard. Beside him stood two peerless beauties. Although both of them had cold faces, they were still pretty good. It was the moon god and Great Sea Ming. Gong Shuqiu turned himself into a mechanical puppet. But how did you appear on the mirage? The moon goddess looked around and saw the carefree Dustless. She said with confusion, the elusive mirage has been in the sea for the past few days. Navigation in the surrounding sea is forbidden. Don't tell me you flew here. Tsk, you are indeed the moon god. You are indeed wise. Your guess is pretty close. Dustless looked at the moon god with a chuckle. Immediately he pulled Great Sea Ming's right arm and opened it. A special symbol appeared on the snow-white arm. This is the Flying Thunder God Warlock. You can treat it as a spatial coordinate. Even if you are at the end of the world, you can instantly meet someone with my Flying Thunder God Warlock. It is not accurate to say that it is flying. This is a method of spatial movement. Dustless smiled. The Flying Thunder God Warlock was indeed a very convenient ninjutsu. Such a magical skill? Great Sea Ming and Moon God looked at Dustless in shock. This guy was simply the synonym of omnipotence. It seemed that there was nothing that he could not do. Why did you come to the mirage? After all, Moon God was also a guardian of the Yin-Yang school. Thinking of their current location, she said uneasily, this is the mirage. Yunzhong Jun, Xing Hun, Yang Si Ming and other experts are all on this ship. I need you to help me complete a task. Dustless let out a heavy breath and said coldly, those idiots from the Mo family actually joined forces with Wei Zhuang. They are really digging their own graves. I will tell you the location. By then the Yin-Yang school will eliminate Wei Zhuang. It would be best if you can eliminate Zhang Liang as well. Aren't you from the Mo family? Great Sea Ming asked in surprise. Dustless was too evil. He actually wanted to kill him. Who told you that I am from the Mo family? If I am from the Mo family, I will definitely not join forces with Wei Zhuang's Lu Sha and Zhang Liang. These two also have their eyes on the 7 constellations of Azure Dragon. Dustless rolled his eyes and snorted. Immediately he said in a deep voice, I have a good relationship with Duanmu Rong from the Mo family. Snow Girl is also somewhat familiar with me. As for the others, I don't have much connection with them. But even if I do, no matter who they are, no matter what force they are from, anyone who dares to snatch the 7 constellations of Azure Dragon, from me will definitely die. Hearing Dustless's murderous tone, the Moon Goddess and Great Sea Ming looked at each other and lowered their heads at the same time. If we directly attack you, you may be exposed. Wei Zhuang and the Mo family have just formed an alliance, and the Yin-Yang school is looking for trouble. This is too much of a coincidence. Zhang Liang is smart and cunning. He will definitely see through the existence of a mole. Great Sea Ming frowned worriedly. She and Dustless had already done that, so it was normal for her to be worried about him. This is very simple. Dustless smiled disapprovingly and said calmly, I have thought about this before. The Yin-Yang school deliberately sent a black dragon scroll, which was intercepted by Wei Zhuang's people. With Old Ban's ability, it is only a matter of time before he deciphered the Black Dragon Scroll. He just needs to put a trap in the scroll and wait for Wei Zhuang to come to his death. Chapter 1853. Although the plan is a little rough and shallow, it's still all right. Moon Goddess reluctantly agreed. Rough and shallow? Hearing this, Dustless's eyes darkened. He stared at the indifferent Moon Goddess and could not help but feel a little conflicted. Was she praising him or mocking him? You have to be careful. Xing Hun has already treated you as a sore point. Dong Huang Tai has also started to notice you. Great Si Ming reminded. Ever since she became Dustless's subordinate, she had started to call Dong Huang Tai by his name. Is that so? That brat misses me so much? Dustless rubbed his chin, then stretched his body and said casually, let's put aside the matter of Xing Hun and Dong Huang Tai for now. It's best if we can get rid of Wei Zhuang and Lu Sha as soon as possible. Those people are too much of an eyesore. With you as a hidden pawn, if they still want to live peacefully, they are really lucky. Moon Goddess looked at Dustless confidently and could not help but sympathize with Wei Zhuang and the rest. She sighed and said, the enemy is scary, but it's nothing compared to the traitor. Speaking of which, how is you recently? Dustless suddenly asked as he looked at the sky full of cherry blossoms. Ever since she met Dong Huang Tai, her name has been changed to Ji Ru Qianlong. She is now studying the illusory sound treasure box in detail. Moon Goddess explained in detail, with me watching over her, you can rest assured. Remember, be careful of Xing Hun. This brat is also very curious about you. With that, Dustless's body emitted a dazzling golden light and disappeared from Moon Goddess and Great Si Ming's eyes. Confucian School, Shaoxing Manor. When he returned from the elusive mirage, Dustless met Zhang Liang at the entrance of Shaoxing Manor. When he saw Dustless, he was overjoyed. When he saw that there was no one around, he asked, that's strange. Brother Dustless left before me. Why did you only arrive at Shaoxing Manor now? Well, Dustless pondered for a moment. He couldn't just say that he was going to discuss with the school of Yinyang about how to set them up, could he? The scenery of the Sang Sea is beautiful. Can be said to be a paradise on earth. I was focused on admiring the scenery along the way and arrived a little late. Dustless casually found an excuse. In any case, Zhang Liang would not be easily convinced. Since that was the case, he might as well give him a perfunctory answer. Prince Fu Su came to find you, saying that he wants to thank you for saving his life. Zhang Liang leaned close to Dustless's ear and whispered, Brother Dustless, forgive me for being blunt, but you actually saved the Empire's crown prince. This is truly shocking. I thought you would. You think I will kill Fu Su? Glancing at Fu Su, who was implying something, Wu Qin said softly, Zifang, although I have killed countless people, but I have my principles. If he is my enemy, I will definitely not let him off. Those who dared to plot against him would also die. Those who have a conflict of interest will also not let him off. But Fu Su was not one of these factors. Dustless would also not kill him casually. If you kill Fu Su, the Empire will definitely suffer heavy losses. Zhang Liang revealed a pitiful expression and said regretfully, everyone in the world knows that Fu Su is the chosen successor of Ying Zheng. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So what? Zifang, you are mistaken about one thing. Dustless organized his thoughts and used a demarcating tone to say, I do not belong to the Mo family. Similarly, I am not a member of the anti-Qin forces. Whether the Qin kingdom is destroyed or continues to prosper, it has nothing to do with me. You. Zhang Liang's deep eyes flashed with a trace of blame. These words undoubtedly showed Dustless's position. What right do you have to talk about me? Seeing Zhang Liang's slightly unhappy expression, Dustless laughed in his heart. Zhang Liang was also the two-faced type. It was hard to determine whether he was good or evil. Although this kid had helped the Mo family and was in cahoots with Wei Zhuang, his relationship with Li Si was unclear. Li Si even referred to Zhang Liang as an old friend. In short, in Dustless's eyes, Zhang Liang was an extremely complicated person who was inextricably linked to every faction. Let's talk about this later. In short, I feel that Fu Su has come today with ill intentions. I'm afraid that he has come to force the Confucian school to express their stance, Zhang Liang said worriedly. He was only the third head of the Confucian school. The real decision-maker was Fu Nian, and Zhang Liang was only secretly helping the Mo family. Express their stance? Dustless muttered and said bluntly, Is this forcing the Confucian school to stand on the side of the Qin kingdom? Apart from that, Fu Su probably wants to learn from something important. Zhang Liang stared at Dustless with burning eyes and advised, "From what I see, Fu Su is also interested in the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. I guess that he is mainly here for it. So, I advise you to give it to Fu Su. Otherwise you will be in trouble." "I'll be in trouble?" Dustless revealed a look of disdain. Zhang Liang was not afraid of Dustless being in trouble, but the Confucian school. After all, Dustless was now a disciple of the Confucian school and would definitely implicate the Confucian school. In other words, Dustless and Li Si are here to find trouble? Dustless calmly asked. His hoarse voice made Zhang Liang feel uneasy. This scourge really shouldn't have been brought into the Confucian school. Zhang Liang was filled with regret. When Dustless joined the Confucian school, he had strongly opposed it. However, his arm was stronger than the thigh, so he finally compromised and allowed Dustless to join the Confucian school. Now that Dustless did not agree to hand over the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, what if he angered Dustless and even tried to assassinate Fu Su? The Little Sage Manor would definitely be destroyed. Zhang Liang's intestines were green with regret. Looking at Dustless's face, he was simply inviting a wolf into the house. Chapter 1854. At the end of the day, Zhang Liang was still a disciple of the Confucian school and the third head. He could not watch Dustless kill the Confucian school without doing anything. He could only continue to persuade him, "Brother Dustless, why do you care about that legendary thing? Are you sure you can understand the Yellowstone Heavenly Book? How can you understand something so profound?" Zhang Liang was not looking down on or mocking Dustless. Everyone in the Little Saint Manor knew that Dustless was strong but illiterate. It was already difficult for him to write his name in Xiaozhuan, not to mention the profound Yellowstone Heavenly Book, which was an ancient language. I won't bother Zifang this time. You are going to be disappointed." Dustless shrugged and explained, "To be honest, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book I won last time was taken away by Sun Fuzi. After he comprehended it, he will share the contents with me." You are in trouble." Hearing this, Zhang Liang could no longer keep calm and said irritably, "Martial uncle has a strange temperament. I am afraid he will not listen to Prince Fu Su. So, you should let nature take its course, Zifang." Patting Zhang Liang's shoulder, Dustless stepped into the Little Saint Manor. "When you see Prince Fu Su later, you must be careful with your words. Do not speak nonsense. Remember that you are now a disciple of the Confucian school. Every action and every word represents the face of the Little Saint Manor." Compared to Dustless, who was gloating, Zhang Liang's handsome face was as ugly as it could be. Especially when Dustless jumped up and down, it gave Zhang Liang a headache. "Fu Su is here, you should at least be nervous. Could it be that other than Fu Su, there is another great person? When I came back, I did not see the heavy armored soldiers of the Qin kingdom. This means that the Qin army that came to the Little Saint Manor this time is very rare. But they should all be experts. After all, that guy is the prince, the future heir of the empire." While appreciating the pleasant scenery of flowers and plants, Wu Qin asked casually, "Is he a Taoist?" "How did you know?" Zhang Liang raised his voice several times louder than before, and a look of shock surfaced on his face. If he remembered correctly, Dustless should have just returned. The moment he stepped into Little Saint Manor, he guessed that it was Fu Su's follower. How could Zhang Liang not be shocked? "This is very simple. I also know that they should be from the Heaven sect of Taoism, right? The human sect is an ally of the school of Mo, so it is reasonable for their archenemy, the Heaven sect, to join the Qin kingdom's camp," Dustless calmly explained. In his mind, an image of a beautiful girl appeared. "This time there is indeed an extraordinary person who came along with Fu Su." Zhang Liang nodded woodenly. Then he said in a troubled tone, "First senior brother can deal with the Heaven sect master, Xiao Meng. However, her seniority is higher than mine and my two senior brothers. Only martial uncle can compete with her." "It really is her." Hearing this, Dustless was enlightened. Seeing the figure in front of him, he quickened his pace and walked over. At the same time, the moon god and Great Sea Ming followed Dustless's plan and ordered a group of Qin soldiers to leave with the Black Dragon Scroll. They purposely let the school of Mo or Wei Zhuang discover their whereabouts. Soon, the fish took the bait and snatched the Black Dragon Scroll away. These people from the school of Mo are so stupid. Wei Zhuang is not as good as Dustless in all aspects, but these idiots chose to abandon Dustless and join forces with Wei Zhuang. How foolish. On the peak of the mountain, Great Si Ming and the moon god stood side by side. The battle in the valley below had already ended, and the school of Mo had the absolute advantage. In less than half an hour, hundreds of Qin soldiers were killed by the people from the school of Mo and the people from the quicksand. This is human nature. In their eyes, Dustless is just one person while Wei Zhuang is the leader of a force. Moreover, he is a noble of Korea and has a feud with the Qin kingdom. With Zhang Liang's persuasion, it is normal for the school of Mo to side with Wei Zhuang. Moon God coldly said, "It is a shame. You gave up the sky and chose to live in hell." The actions of the people from the school of Mo can no longer be described with the word foolish. No wonder Dustless refused to be the leader of the school of Mo. The doctrine of this sect does not suit him. There is a fundamental problem. It is only a matter of time before it is destroyed. In fact, as the moon god said, in the future the school of Mo would disappear from history. Speaking of which, what did Dustless leave in the Black Dragon Scroll? Great Si Ming could not hold back his curiosity and looked at the moon god expectantly. On the 18th of next month, the first emperor will tour the east. This is the content hidden in the Black Dragon Scroll, the moon god said softly. I see. In this case, the rebels of the school of Mo and the people from the school of Mo will kill Ing Zheng at all costs. Great Si Ming's cold face formed a beautiful arc. The only difference was that it was very deadly. For the people who were against the Qin kingdom, they could not wait for the first emperor to go on a tour. In this way they could seize the opportunity to assassinate him. Once the school of Mo knows about the content of the Black Dragon Scroll, they will kill Ing Zheng at all costs, Great Si Ming said with certainty. That is true. But it is a pity. Ing Zheng will tour the east but not now. Their wish is destined to fail. It is just a beautiful dream that is out of their reach. Moreover, the person who will replace Ing Zheng to tour the east this time is Xing Hun. This was Dustless's plan. He would use Xing Hun to kill Wei Zhuang and the others. Then he would jump out to be the savior and win everyone's trust. What a perfect script. Chapter 1855. Yueshan and Great Si Ming gave their full support to Dustless's plan. There was nothing they could do. Although they were still part of the school of Yin Yang on the surface, Yueshan and Great Si Ming's relationship with Dustless could not be severed. Especially Great Si Ming, not only was her mind taken over by Dustless, even her body was taken over by him. As for Yueshan, she was also subdued by Dustless. In the past, the moon deity had no choice but to launch a sneak attack on Xing Hun. Once this matter was exposed, the moon deity would definitely suffer. Hence, she had always been threatened by Wu Qin. For the time being, she listened to everything he said and did not dare to go against him. However, as time passed, after being Dustless's follower for a while, Yueshan was shocked to find that following Dustless was not bad. Compared to Dustless, Dong Huangtai's astrology was simply too weak. Although astrology was magical, it could only vaguely predict the general situation. On the other hand, Dustless was nature-defying and could do what others couldn't. He could predict the future every time and come up with the most detailed and accurate data clues to convince others. He was countless times better than Dong Huangtai. As for his strength, it was needless to say. The mission is completed. Let's retreat for now. Looking over, School of Mo and Quicksand's people were crushing the Qin army at lightning speed. Then they hurriedly cleaned up the battlefield. It seemed like they did not want to leave any evidence behind. However, they did not know that their every move was seen by Yueshan and Great Si Ming. That old man banned from School of Mo is also very skilled in the art of traps. He is not weaker than Gong Shuqiu. I'm afraid he will solve the Black Dragon Scroll soon. Great Si Ming agreed. Then the two of them turned into green smoke and disappeared with the wind. On the other side at Xiaoxing's manor, the atmosphere was tense, especially the current head of Confucianism, Funyan, who was the most depressed. First, Li Si came to find trouble and he managed to deal with it. Now Fusu came. Funyan's heart was extremely heavy. He even had the thought of exorcising ghosts for peace. Furthermore, Fusu's excuse made it difficult for Funyan to reject him. Ignoring the other party's identity, he had come to the sage manor to thank him. How could he reject him? Everyone. At this moment, a voice that everyone hadn't heard for a long time suddenly rang out, instantly attracting everyone's attention. The people who came into view were Dustless and Zhang Liang. Seeing this, Li Si groaned and pointed at Dustless as he reprimanded, "Zichen, how dare you? You actually dared to make the young master wait for you for an hour. This is a great disrespect." Last time, Dustless had won the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from Li Si, causing this fellow to hate Dustless to death. How could he let go of such a good opportunity? Lord Prime Minister, the guilty person, is you. Dustless sneered and immediately retorted sarcastically, My Lord Prime Minister, you should understand that this is the Confucian school and should abide by the Confucian school's rules. Young Master Fu Su has yet to speak, but you speak first. Do you have any respect for the young master? You. Hearing this, Li Si's old face instantly darkened. He fiercely glared at Dustless before hurriedly apologizing, Young master, please forgive me. I neglected it for a moment. Neglected it for a moment? Lord Prime Minister, don't you know that there is a saying that a person's true nature is often inadvertently revealed? Perhaps the moment that you neglected it just now was Lord Li's true nature. Dustless continued his attack, his words causing Li Si's old face to turn red. This despicable brat. After hearing this, Li Si hurriedly knelt on the ground and secretly glanced at Fu Su. Seeing that the latter was not angry, he heaved a sigh of relief. To be honest, Li Si really did not care about Fu Su. Although this fellow was the future successor of the empire, Fu Su currently did not have any real power. In history, Fu Su was killed by this Li Si in front of him. Brat, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't speak carelessly. If a young man is arrogant, he will only fall and bleed. Li Si's eyes were sinister and vicious, releasing a light that was about to devour someone. What a joke. Seeing this, Dustless did not hide the contempt in his eyes. Naturally, he could hear the threat in Li Si's words. His classmate Han Fei was too talented and was envied by Li Si, resulting in his wrongful death in prison. All of this was related to Li Si. Although this fellow was the prime minister, in terms of bearing he was truly lacking. Furthermore, this person was extremely narrow-minded and easily jealous. However, it was undeniable that Li Si was able to reach the position of prime minister, which meant that he had some ability. Alright, the two of you, let's stop here. Fu Su waved his hand. Seeing that Dustless was not afraid of Li Si, his face was filled with unconcealable surprise. Ordinary people would not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Li Si. Li Si looked like a cultured person on the surface, but do not forget that he had a net in his hands. In reality, he was also a person with muscles. This brat has caused me to lose face time and time again. I have to find a chance to get rid of him. Seeing that Dustless did not show any signs of anger, Li Si's livid face slowly recovered. He hated Dustless to the core. Ever since he met this brat, he had been unlucky. Just thinking about it made Li Si feel unlucky. Especially when Li Si lost the Yellowstone Heavenly Scripture. In the last competition, he was even scolded by Ying Zheng. Just thinking about it made him clench his teeth in anger. If he could give a treasure like the Yellowstone Heavenly Scripture to Ying Zheng, then his position as the Prime Minister would be much more stable. Chapter 1856. Li Si and Dustless suddenly engaged in a battle of words, causing everyone to jump in fright. Especially the head of the Confucian school, Fu Nian, who felt uneasy. Even though he was happy to slap Li Si's face, Dustless's actions were no different from setting himself on fire. After all, Li Si was the Prime Minister. You want to fight with me? I'll kill you. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Dustless finally sat down. His magnanimous appearance was very carefree, completely opposite to Li Si, who was so angry that the veins on his forehead were popping. Everyone looked at each other in astonishment. At such a young age, you're indeed a dragon among men. Fu Su's deep and bright eyes circled around Dustless. His face was filled with unconcealable surprise. Dustless's age was really too young. He looked to be around 17 or 18 years old, but his bearing was extraordinary. Especially when he was on par with Li Si, it blinded everyone's eyes. In this ancient era there was a popular saying, the people do not fight with the officials. Furthermore, the other party was Li Si, a true prime minister. In the entire Great Qin Empire, his position was second only to Qin King Ying Zheng. Although Fu Su's status was higher than Li Si's, he did not have any real power. A mere disciple of the Confucian school dared to offend the current prime minister. In the eyes of some people, Dustless was a classic example of courting death. They hoped that Li Si would give him a stab. If not for Zichen saving me, I would have been killed by those bandits. The reason why I am still alive today is all because of Grandmaster. Fu Su bowed slightly after he finished speaking, his expression filled with gratitude. This brat, What ability does he have to make young master think so highly of him? In truth, Li Si was rather jealous. This was the first time he had seen Fu Su address someone as grandmaster. You're too polite. I just saw injustice on the road. Dustless did not mind and only smiled. He had a good impression of Fu Su. Despite his identity as the future successor of the Great Qin Empire, Fu Su's manners did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. Just like the rumors, he was very gentle. May I know where the Yellowstone Heavenly Book that Grandmaster obtained is? Fu Su impatiently asked when he thought of the special and important aspects of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. This. Dustless frowned slightly and stopped moving his lips. He really didn't know how to answer. Let's see how you're going to escape this time. Young master is asking you for the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Are you going to refuse? If you dare to refuse, I have countless reasons to deal with you. Seeing Dustless's distressed appearance, Li Si felt refreshed and an unconcealable smile appeared on his face. However, this joyous scene did not last long. After hearing Dustless's nonsensical reply, Li Si's heart almost jumped out of his chest. Well, to tell you the truth, I was attacked a few days ago and lost the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Dustless pretended to be disappointed and ashamed, saying, "Those people are extremely powerful and well-trained. They look like men of sacrifice. I managed to severely injure one of them, but the Yellowstone Heaven Book was also taken away by them." Really? Hearing this, Fu Su was first taken aback and then said angrily, "You dare to rob in broad daylight. What a bastard. Li Si, what are you doing as the Prime Minister? Do you only care about enjoying your life?" "Young master. Li Si wanted to cry but no tears came out. Looking at the shocked and angry Dustless, he even had the thought of dying. This was all made up by Dustless. In these days he had sent people to observe Dustless and often lost him. How could there be anyone ambushing him? It was all nonsense. You dare to deceive young master. Although it is not a serious crime like deceiving the monarch, it is enough for you to suffer." Li Si's cold gaze swept over Dustless. Just as he was about to expose him, he saw Dustless's cunning eyes and his heart skipped a beat. Without waiting for Li Si to explain, Dustless took the initiative to attack Li Si. "Young master, to be honest, a few days ago when I lost the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, I killed one of them. Those people seemed to belong to the same organization and all of them had the mark of a spider on their necks." Wu Chen's eyes were sparkling and his determined tone made people involuntarily convinced. Pfft. After hearing Wu Chen's deceptive explanation, Zhao Gao, who had been silent all this while, lost his self-control and spat out the hot tea that he had just drunk. "Zhao Gao, do you know the organization that Master Zichen spoke of?" Seeing Zhao Gao's abnormal behavior, Fu Su instinctively asked. Then he said, "Such an arrogant organization, we cannot easily let them go." Zhao Gao stood up and coughed awkwardly. Cough cough cough. "Young master, that organization is actually a trap." Zhao Gaozhen shifted his gaze and saw Wu Chen, who was grinning evilly. Zhao Gaozhen wished he could slap him. He had indeed sent a net to ambush Wu Chen, but it had failed in the end. But, glancing coldly at Dustless, Zhao Gao coldly said in a loud voice, "Zichen is extremely strong. At that time the people of the Luo Net did not steal the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Young master, he is completely making things up. Please punish him." Magistrate Zhao Gao's official position. Don't lie through your teeth. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book was obviously snatched away by you. Now you want to frame me? If you want to prove that the Yellowstone Heavenly Book is still in my hands, please take out your own evidence. Dustless said calmly. This damned brat, how dare he be so arrogant? Hearing this, Zhao Gao's cold face was filled with a bone-piercing killing intent. He finally understood how depressed Li Si was. In the past he thought that Dustless was only strong. He did not expect that his sharp tongue was even stronger than his martial arts. Evidence? The Luo Net never needed evidence. Where could he find it? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.